Sword of Coming Chapter 984. There are only 1,000 cups of wine when a confidant is drunk, and there is not much speculation. Whether it is with Xiego or by Jing, there is actually nothing to talk about. After drinking a pot of wine, Qin Pingan made a temporary move, said goodbye, and said he was going to visit. In Beiwe Mountain Juanfu, the sable-capped girl chased after her and asked her if she could go back to Luapa Mountain. It's not a problem to be relegated to the outside world. It's not a matter of delaying Xiaomo's practice. It is eating, drinking and practicing swords anytime, anywhere. The Ascension realm will only be more complete. The bigger the distance, the less face Xiaomo will lose. If he loses face, Xiaomo doesn't want to see her. Alas, death, it's a shame to suffer, man. Hearing this, Qin Pingan actually didn't have the patience to accompany her to chat with her. Just looking at the posture, Xiego seemed to have made up his mind. There is no answer today, so she followed all the way to Piyun Mountain, and Qin Pingan had to stand in the pavilion. Next, let her give her a reason to convince herself. Xiego said that when he returned to the mountain, he would definitely be more cautious in his words and deeds than before, and learn the law of riding the left side of the dragon lane every day, and be a man with his tail tucked. If the mountain owner does not believe it, she will just swear an oath in the name of Master Baizhe. Can it not be true? Qin Pingan asked her what to do with the business of the New Year's shop in Kalangxiang, and she was partnering with Zhou Junshin to do business. Xiego said that he would definitely not care. He would go to the shop every other day, but it was really difficult to do business. He only said that there are people on Fulu Street and Taoya Lane. Now they have specially assigned people to block her. Fight her wits and courage. Qin Pingan said angrily, "Is there any business that you do that is not authentic? In the first month of the month, you will post a notice on the door of the house. Fortunately, you still have a bottom line. You didn't put it on the door god's face." Feeling aggrieved, he said that I had discussed it with those door gods, and I agreed in advance that I didn't use those mountain-based methods of asking gods to surrender and arresting ghosts and detaining spirits. Everyone said it didn't matter. The old man was calm. Qin Pingan was speechless, silent for a moment, looking at the sable-capped girl with a wrinkled face and aggrieved baba. Later, Qin Pingan used the method of shrinking the earth, hiding his figure in a secluded place, and then walked to the foot of Piyun Mountain. As the location of Beiwa Temple in one state, there are many good men and women who come to Piyun Mountain to worship incense, but everyone knows about Piyun Mountain. It is the dojo of Wei Bo, but very few pilgrims can see this legendary Beiwa Shanjun with his own eyes. Xiego finally got a mountain master's decree. If he was granted amnesty, he was in a good mood. The girl with red cheeks swayed to Luapa Mountain. Not to mention, on the side of Luapa Mountain, Qin Pingan's fart is fragrant. There are a lot of flatterers on the mountain, so it's no wonder that she doesn't fit in with the group. The sable-capped girl completely forgot that when she parted just now, she kept clasping her fists and yelling at Shanzhu Ming. On the side of the mountain gate, it was quite lively. Xian Wei and Zhou Mili were sitting at the table drinking tea, with Tiao Qilong Lane on the side of the left guardian. In addition, it is rare that Xin Yuanji is also practicing boxing and walking between piles. Sitting here for a while, there is also a boy in red clothes who came from the Xuanhuan temple. Qin Shan's his immortal aura. Do not expect to chat, just a few glances from a distance will be rewarded. And a white-flowered snake in Chiduan Mountain, as the riding mount of the boy in red clothes, also curled up at the bottom of the table, looking extremely docile. They are all gathered here to listen to Xianwei Daochang talking about Dashan. Xianwei glanced at the local dog. At first, Daoist Xianwei felt very pitiful. He regarded it as a wild dog that was looking for something to eat. He even got some chicken, fish and bones from the old cook. At that time, when the dog raised its head, Xianwei actually saw extremely complex emotions in the other's eyes: grief, anger, disgust, depression, pity. Xianwei was shocked at the time. Could it be that Pindao was despised by a local dog? It was only later that I found out that it was the well-known Zhuahufa of Qilong Lane. Misunderstandings are misunderstandings. Be kind, be kind. In addition, there is a visitor who has just traveled here, a middle-aged Taoist priest with a sword on his back, with a face as white as jade, holding a purple bamboo stick and a gourd scoop hanging from his waist. Both Zhou Mili and Xianwei knew each other's identities because they had met each other before. Zhou Mili was on the Qingshandu side of Xindu Mountain, and had a good chat with the Taoist Lu, who claimed to be Chunyang. Xianwei stopped at the mountain gate because Lu Yin visited Luopao Mountain once before. At that time he drank a bowl of hot tea at the table. And also asked fellow Taoist Chunyang if he was afraid. Lu Yin smiled without saying a word. Xianwei was very happy and said that he was bragging. He also invited the other party to serve as a guest of Luopao Mountain, and he was willing to introduce him. Based on his relationship with Qin Shanzhu, I dare not say that this kind of thing will happen, but it will definitely not happen. However, Xianwei didn't say that the name Keqing is still not named. You have to leave some room to speak. You can't imitate Qin Lingjun. He speaks firmly like a glutinous rice ball. It's delicious, but it's easy to last. Nourish the stomach. Lu Yan's trip was relatively slow, and he visited the entire ancient Shu land, which is a vast territory. Some of the ruins of the Dragon Palace, which have not yet been found by the Dali court, have also been visited by Taoists. Qishir, naturally, is just visiting immortals to explore secluded places. They are all scenes of people going to empty buildings. The eyes are full of desolation, the world has changed, and the vicissitudes of life are nothing more than this. Finally, I took a trip to Huangtinghua and visited the Hanxi River along the way. I read several rare books in the old collection that were inherited and ordered in the Chao family Jilan building. Looking at the old books was like reuniting with old friends. The ancient books in the world are always divided and combined like this. He then passed the Baihu River, Xiang Mansion, and then walked along the mountain road from Hongzhou town, past Chiduan Mountain, and walked slowly all the way to this unfortunate mountain. Previously, the Taoist looked at the lively gate of the mountain and nodded and smiled. In general immortal mansion, this kind of picture will not appear. There are so many realm divisions along the way of cultivation, and the mind will inevitably fluctuate along with it. In a mountain sect, many cultivators are considered to be successful in cultivating their minds. It is difficult, but it is not uncommon, but it is a miracle to want people to be one. On this visit, Lu Yan had something to ask for, and he had a mortal experience and he needed the help of Lord Qin Shanzhu to protect the Tao. This Taoist protector does not have high requirements for realm. Not to mention Qin Pingan, who was personally recommended by the most holy teacher. I heard the little girl in black say that the mountain master went down the mountain to the town. In fact, I went to check the accounts at Qilong Lane. Millet Grain asked seriously, "Is Chunyang Xianchang anxious to see the mountain master? If there is an urgent matter, she only needs to recite Wei Shanjun 3 times in her heart, just like knocking on the door. Wei Shanjun on the side of Piyun Mountain can listen immediately, then as long as she is in the Beiyue boundary, she can immediately talk to the good person mountain master." Lu Yan smiled and said, "Don't worry, Pindao waits for Qin Shanzhu to return here and then climb the mountain together." In addition to tea and melon seeds on the table, there are 2 bags of dried creek fish taken out from a cotton satchel with millet grains. The last time I was at King Shangdu, Meili was reluctant to take out the only bag of dried fish left to entertain guests. In fact, after that, Zhou Meili developed a habit. Every time he goes out, he must contain 2 or more bags of dried creek fish in the cotton satchel, which is nicknamed Zhu Shi Tang by Meili in case of emergency. Xiego is very kind now. Seeing the young Taoist priest with a wooden hairpin on his head, now his real name is Nianjing, and his Taoist name is Xianwei, Xiego is completely relieved. Her reasoning is very simple: you can't pick up 2 pieces of silver one after another on the same street. Who else can I meet at this old site of Lizidongshan? In the past, the world's first Taoist, one of the 10 richest men in the world, has already seen it. She can't have such good luck anymore, can she? The Beiju Luzhou in the north is a huge continent, and there is only a real fire dragon lying on the ground. Can it enter her eyes? As for Tong Yezhou in the south, Yu Guizong Jianxiu Weiying? Or the sycamore tree in Xinyala? Or the Wanyao sect in Sanshan Blessed Land? As a result, when Xiego approached the mountain gate, she first saw the middle-aged Taoist priest with an unfamiliar face, Danfeng eyes, 3 long beards. This Taoist priest looked like a realmless person. In an instant, Xiego felt a sense of oppression like an enemy. 10,000 years ago, after being with Xiaoma for so long, he never felt this strange. Maybe only once, Xiaoma almost sacrificed all his life to fly. Jian, and then she chased after Luobeatin. The Bixiao cave master appeared and advised her not to cross the border. If she crossed the border, don't leave, just stay. People cross the border, keep people. Legs cross the border, keep legs. Feijin crossed the border and left Feijin behind. Damn it, Xiego still feels aggrieved when he thinks of this stinky cow-nosed old man. There is no reason. Such a big Aquarius, why is there such a hidden dragon and crouching tiger? Xiego narrowed his eyes and slowed his pace. That inconspicuous table really looked like a dragon's pond and a tiger's den. Seeing the thin sable-capped girl, the boy in Zhu Yi stood on the table with his hands on his hips, and greeted with a smile. "Xiao Xie is back. I heard Wei Xian say that you are going to ride the dragon lane to earn money for your private house. Already?" Xiego nodded with a straight face, but he and Xin Yuanji smiled brightly and said, "Sister Xin, rest." Fools are easy to deceive, so Xiego has a very good impression of Xin Yuanji, unlike the incensed little man in the xuanhuan temple. Don't look stupid, he is actually a fine person. I saw a little girl in black standing up. It was the little water monster who made the white-haired boy shout to form a black and white double evil, but didn't agree. If Xiego had left it before, he would have stretched out his hand to hold the little girl's head, and shook it a few times, but he just ate a bite to gain wisdom, and now he smiled and said, "Yo, it's the legendary right Dharma protector, it's a pleasure to meet you. Fortunately, my name is Xiego, and I am Xiaomo's daughter-in-law." Xianhui spit out a sip of tea, choked and coughed, and quickly wiped the table with his sleeve. Zhou Li's eyes widened even more. "What, Mr. Amo has a Taoist companion?" Xiego finally looked at the Taoist priest. "Where is this old man?" Lu Yin smiled and said, "The world is home and the life is cloud and water." Xiego said, "I think with the ability of the Taoist priest, even if you learn the talisman Yuxuan of the Middle Earth Divine Continent, and have 3 or 5 sects at the same time, it is more than enough." Lu Yin smiled and said, "The girl is wrong, I dare not compare it with Senior Yu Xian." Xianhui can't listen anymore. It's like complimenting a scholar. You can say that people are pedantic and unparalleled, but you can directly say that the other person's knowledge is similar to Yaxing and Wenxing. This is not a face-to-face scolding, what is it? It seems that Miss Xie's thinking behind closed doors at Qilong Lane is in vain. It is estimated that it has something to do with Jialao Xinxian not sitting in the grass head shop. Otherwise, if you learn from Jialao Xinxian to succeed, Xiego won't talk like that. Not a coincidence. Xiego sat cross-legged on the bench. "Where did you guys talk just now? Continue when I don't exist." Zhou Li held the tea bowl with both hands, took a sip of the tea, put it on the table lightly and smiled happily. "Just now Daoist Chunyang helped each of us put 2 or 3 pieces of mugwort in the tea bowl, saying that it is to practice qi. If a scholar drinks this tea for a long time and supplements it with a Daoyin technique, it will be able to drive away the cold, strengthen the yang energy and keep the spirit alive." Xiego stretched his neck and glanced at the 3 leaves of mugwort in the little girl's bowl. It was actually made of mugwort leaves cooked with real fire from the sun. The Taoist master is proficient in ancient methods? It seems that the teacher has a long history. How about 10,000 years of cultivation in later generations? Xiego traveled to Beiju Luzhou and took a look at it. The techniques of worshipping the moon and picking stars are all common, except for the practice of the sun, which is relatively rare, because the threshold is higher, and just now, Xiego glanced attentively. Xiego looked at the subtle veins of the few leaves of mugwort, which fell in her eyes, and they were all visible, as big as a mountain range. Xiego was naturally better than Xin Yuanji, the layman who was in the midst of happiness and did not know his happiness. There are more experts in the doorway, and the Taoist priest in front of him is very likely to be an expert who can go to that kind of Huiyang palace for a walk. In this way, isn't he half the same as himself? Lu Yin smiled and said nothing. Xiego asked again, "Is the Taoist priest still a swordsman?" Lu Yin said, "I know a little about swordsmanship, so I can barely be considered a swordsman." Xiego asked, "I don't know how you think about cultivation." This was just a casual question, but I didn't think that the other party would really give the answer. I saw the Taoist priest smiled and said, "The ancients made laws, food must use fire so the people of all generations can survive, and the house must be driven by water so the billions of trillions of spirits can really stand." Lu Yin stretched out his finger and pointed to the great sun in the sky. In the eyes of Pindao, the most precious thing in the sky, the one that is visible but not hidden, can be obtained by everyone, so there is only a red sun hanging in the air. The Taoist took another breath and exhaled a breath of clear spiritual energy. The white mist was hazy like a cloud of water, with a red line floating and sinking, like a slender fire dragon flying through the clouds and raining, the great treasure of man, although hidden. If you don't show it, you can still seek it from yourself, just this one breath of true yang. This thing is pure and pure. People who cultivate the Tao slowly see merit and condense into a group. They are their own pure yang. Therefore, pure yang is immortal and pure yin is pure yang. Ghosts are half of yin and yang in human beings, and they are friends of ghosts and ghosts. They are either ghosts or ghosts. They are only practicing, self-validating their minds and self-cultivating their spirits. Xiego smiled and said, "The truth is good, but it's a little too general and it sounds like a fog not touching the sky or the ground." Lu Yin smiled and said, "Like this girl Tsin, although she is not a qi practitioner, as a pure martial artist practicing martial arts and practicing boxing, together with qi refining, has the same effect. Like a fire dragon walking on water, the qi and blood are a vast river, and the bones and muscles are stretched mountains. Moreover, it can be seen that Miss Sen's boxing master is extremely accomplished in martial arts. especially the combination of boxing and breathing which can teach others refreshingly. Because this person taught mists and 4 completely different breathing techniques, so the trajectory of infuriating qi is different between day and night, winter and summer, so it is possible to keep pressing the situation without hurting the body and soul. Spirit different from ordinary people. Tin Yuanji was stunned on the spot. Mr. Zhu taught her the 4 paths of true qi circulation. Of course she had been practicing boxing for so many years. Could it be that his slowness in breaking through is not because of his own poor qualifications? Mr. Zhu has always said that she has good martial arts qualifications, and is it not a comforting word? Xiego smiled and said, the way is long and tall. Lu Yen smiled. Xiego is still not clear at the moment. This land Sanxian with the Taoist name Chunyang is one of the 10 future heroes in the future in the eyes of the most holy master. Qin Pingan did not go directly to the temple on the top of the mountain along the sacred way of worshipping incense, but held a walking stick and hiked to the second peak of Piyun Mountain. Among the crowd of climbers, he came to the Wenchang Pavilion on this mountain to burn incense and make a wish. Yasushi is no different. In Piyun Mountain, there are more than a dozen temples and Taoist temples. In the past, the Dali court once selected 6 mountains and 10 temples on the territory of one continent, all of which are famous Buddhist temples. Among them, the Guangfu Temple in Piyun Mountain is the emperor of the Song dynasty of Dali. In the imperial order, the imperial pen inscribed the plaque, gave the purple clothes and the Dharma name, and once ordered the abbot to enter the capital to write the golden scriptures. Halfway up the mountain there is a pavilion for resting feet. There is a tea stall next to it. Most of the porters in the mountains drink tea at the tea stall. Qin Pingan is here. It turned out that it was Wei Shanjun who came here in person, and of course he used a trick so that the common people didn't know each other. This Beiwei mountain monarch, whose reputation has spread far and wide in other continents, has the essence of golden body, and now his realm cultivation is equivalent to that of a fairy. What's more, the entire Beiwei realm is Weibo's dojo, and Weibo can be regarded as most of the Ascension realm. Qin Pingan asked the stall owner for another bowl of tea. After Weibo was seated he asked, why didn't Mr. Amo come? It was stopped by Qin Shanju again, isn't it appropriate? Qin Pingan immediately replied, when will Wei Shanjun hold a night tour banquet? I seem to have never drank the fine wine from Shanjun's mansion. I have regrets in my life and must find an opportunity to make up for it. There is an old saying that living for a long time is cheap, and frequent kisses are also sparse. Luopao Mountain and Piyun Mountain have no such concerns. But in fact, Qin Pingan doesn't know any of the chief officials of the Shanjun mansion, the little 30th Shanshui deity. Now Luopa Mountain has a lower sect. If there is another lower sect in Beiju Luzhou, Luopa Mountain and Qingping Sword sect, wouldn't it be necessary to take advantage of the situation to upgrade to the authentic in the upper sect? Think about such beautiful things. When the time comes, there will be a few more good deeds, and you will definitely have a place in the selection of the top 10 sects in the world. What you? It hurts my feelings. It has to be us. Qin Pingan smiled and said, Tong yes, his excavation of Dadu has already been made, and construction will start soon. I asked Qingping Jianzong to leave a gap for you. Between 1,400 and 1,800 grain rain money, do you have any ideas? If Pai Yunshan's treasury is tight, I can help to make it up first. 4 ordinary Qi practitioners, participating in the excavation of Dadu may be the exchange of money and loss, and even the more money you earn, the farther away you are from merit. The ranks, but to some extent can help their respective sects and families to earn some blessings, but these blessings are not very likely to flow, usually only carry out around Dadu. The business of Zhai is prosperous and the financial resources are prosperous. This is the only reason why Jianghu must set up shops in all the ferry ports. Xinyala Qingtong, which is closely related to Yizhou's luck, is an exception, but for the gods of mountains and rivers, they all have real merits and virtues, and they are guaranteed to make money without losing money. Weibo nodded and said, then I will take out 2,000 grain rain coins and make up a whole number. Qin Pingan said in surprise, Wei Shanjun take out 2,000 grain rain money in one breath without frowning? The treasure house of our Beiwei Mountain Jun's mansion must not be gold and silver? Come here, why don't you take me for a walk? Go for a walk and open your eyes? Weibo twitched the corners of his mouth. It's you, not us. Qin Pingan smiled and said, the sunset is still and the mountains and rivers are quiet. Let me listen to you and say yes or no. Weibo said helplessly, Qin Yingwen's limericks and collections are already famous enough. But Wei Shanjun can't deny it, it's still very fitting. Weibo suddenly frowned slightly. Qin Pingan asked, what's wrong? Weibo explained, Luapa Mountain, there is a wandering Taoist priest. I can't even see the depth of the other party's Taoism, but the other party immediately noticed my spying. The tea bowl rippled with clouds and mist, and a picture emerged. I saw that there was a table sitting around the entrance of Luopao Mountain. Among them was a middle-aged Taoist priest with immortal style, but this landscape painting quickly dissipated. Chen Pingan glanced at him and said with a smile, "It's normal. This senior's surname is Lu Mingyan, and his Taoist name is Chunyang. He is a true Taoist, a well-deserved Taoist, and he doesn't want people to know where he is. Don't talk about my Luapa Mountain or your Piyun Mountain. I am afraid that even at the foot of Sui Mountain, the gods can't notice it when they travel around." Wei Bo said in admiration, "Chunyang? Such a big Dao name, ordinary people can't bear it." Wei Bo carefully inspected Xianhu for a moment and asked in his heart, "I remember that in the history of Huang Tingwa, there was a Taoist priest who threw a wine glass into the river and turned it into a white eagle. Is there a relationship with this Taoist priest?" Chen Pingan nodded and said, "It was the handwriting of this real person of Chunyang. Back then he and Qing Shanchang traveled the river together by boat, and improvised while drunk. This is how the water goddess of the Baihu River came into being." Wei Bo hesitated. Chen Pingan shook his head. "About this pure yang Taoist who likes to play the world, there is also an old incident. The old yellow calendar is full of old stories that have been covered in dust for a long time. For example, Aunt Feng, who lives in the fire temple in the capital, once had a landscape illusion of burning wormwood and burning the dragon's forehead. Another example is the blessed land of hundreds of flowers in the past. Many flower gods once turned to a man surnamed Chui who was in luck to defend against Aunt Feng. And this person also became the founding emperor of the Daong dynasty, and he has always been very fond of incense with Baihua blessed land, and there is still the custom of hanging flowers in the whole country. At the beginning of the dragon-slaying battle in the past, the real dragons in the world and many dragon palaces and water houses had also pinned their hopes on the help of a man who had attained the Tao, and it was Chunyang Luyen." Wei Bo stopped asking questions and complained, "What do you plan to do with this little girl who goes by the pseudonym Xiago?" A sword cultivator who had completed the Ascension realm, was from a wild demon clan, and he stayed in the Beiwei realm like this every day, and Wei Bo felt terrified. So far, Wei Bo has not leaked the secret to the officials of the Shanjun mansion, saying that there is such a number one person wandering in Huaihuang County, lest they be frightened. Qin Pingan began to distance himself. "She is the admirer of your Mr. Amo, you can't complain to me." Wei Bo said, "I just made a mistake in the calculation and now the Shanjun mansion has to spend money everywhere, and it's stretched thin. How can one word be so poor? The 2,000 grain rain money? I begged the Luapa Xianhuan mansion to help me make it up. I can set up a new one. And I owe you." Chen Pingan had to promise. Ziga sighed, "I will restrain her. I will definitely not let her mess up. If there is any mistake, you can just find me." Wei Bo asked, "The Taoists of Chunyang have all shown their faces at the gate of the mountain. Why don't you hurry up and entertain guests?" Chen Pingan smiled and said, "I'm definitely going, but don't be in a hurry. Let me accompany Wei Shanjun to finish a bowl of tea. You can't be too fond of the new. This is what makes you hard when you speak from the bottom of your heart. There are millet grains in charge of hospitality, and there is no need for him, the mountain owner, to be the icing on the cake. If the visitor hadn't started in Ascension, we would not even bother to move out of the right protector from Luapa Mountain. But if it was Qin Lingjun, you can see if Chen Pingan is in a hurry, the custody would have rushed to the entrance of Luapa Mountain." Chen Pingan drank 2 bowls of tea, so that Wei Shanjun didn't have to send him off, so he left gracefully. When Chen Pingan arrived at the entrance of Luopao Mountain, Lu Yen got up and said with a smile, "Nursing." The two sides climbed the mountain together, climbed the stairs, and went directly to the top of the mountain. Lu Yen said straight to the point, "I have something to ask for." Chen Pingan almost spoke in unison with similar meanings, asking for something. Lu Yen smiled and said, "Master Qin Shan will talk about it first." Chen Pingan was not polite and said, "It may be necessary to ask the Taoist priest for a fire talisman. The higher the rank, the better." Lu Yen knew it in his heart. Is it because of when Yunhua pythons escape? Chen Pingan hesitated for a moment and asked, "My little warm tree, Daoxian, is in the Jilan building of the Chao family in Huang Tingwa. Could it be related to the Taoist priest?" Lu Yen stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Pin Dao used to draw a talisman on the beams and pillars of a book building in Shu. The original intention was to protect books, but it was not a Jilan building at that time. As for how to fall into it, Chao's hand, I think it's just a matter of chance." Qin Pingan bowed his thanks. Lu Yen waved his hand, there's no need for that. Lu Yin then asked, when Yun Fire Python is not easy to escape, and the natural conflict between water and fire is difficult to reconcile, does Master Qin have a plan? Qin Pingan nodded with a smile. In an instant Lu Yin looked around and smiled slightly. It turned out that he was already in a long river of time that was formed by Qin Pingan's 2 flying swords. The text is a mountain, the text is full of movement, and the weather is good. Lu Yin said, with this background, Xuanhuan will be more than enough to enter the Jade Realm in the future. There is not much difference between the fire talisman of the poor way or not. Seeing that Qin Pingan was hesitant to say anything, Lu Yin smiled and said, Pindao came here to ask for help, how could he be stingy with a talisman? Qin Pingan asked curiously, I don't know what the chief is asking for? Lu Yin said, protect the Dao for a while. Qin Pingan wondered, with the current state of the younger generation, is he really capable of doing this? Lu Yin nodded and said, Pindao is not worried about whether Qin Shanju is competent at all. He is afraid that Qin Shanju protects Dao with too much effort, and Pindao himself has nothing to do. Qin Pingan asked, can the Taoist master elaborate on protecting the Tao? Lu Yin smiled and said, don't worry, you still need to wait for a while. Qin Pingan took back 2 flying swords, and Lu Yin took out 2 talismans from his sleeves. Qin Pingan said, one is enough. Lu Yin smiled and said, just treat it as a good thing in pairs. The fire talisman is given to Xuanhuan. As for the other water talisman, it is for your right guardian. Sword of Coming Chapter 985. Qin Pingan just took out the sword-raising gourd, and Lu Yin also took off the gourd around his waist and smiled at each other. Probably this is what Bai Yes poems call a mountain and a quiet person, flowers blooming on Zhuoshan. Lu Yin raised his head and poured a mouthful of self-brewed water. Do you know the origin of these mountain peaks in Lizhu Cave? Qin Pingan nodded and said, Chui Dongshan once said some inside stories. There are a total of 62 hills in the mountains to the west, most of which are migrating from the mountains of the ancient Shu. There are more than 40 of them. I guess it is the handwriting of Mr. Sanshan Jiuho, and I will see if there is any chance to ask in person. But things like the Luopao mountain under our feet, the Piyun mountain over Weibo, and the mountain with the dragon-slaying platform are all relatively weird. There is no written record. The latter was recorded as Jiaoyou Mountain by the secret archives of the Ministry of the Household of Dali, and was banned during the Chunwei period. According to our local dialect, it is commonly known as Longji Mountain. Mysterious, maybe the only one who knows the real route is Grandpa Yang in the backyard of the pharmacy in the past. Lu Yin smiled and said, Grandpa Yang? You mean that Qingtong Tianjun? Qingtong Tianjun, one of the 12 high-ranking gods, was the ancestor of the Earth immortal man who mastered a flying platform in the past, but he became of the human race. Just like a lonely man who lights a lamp and keeps the year old, he has been in the world for 10,000 years. Qin Pingan nodded lightly. If it wasn't for Grandpa Yang, he wouldn't be alive today. There are some things that he can endure when he grows up, but he can't endure it when he grows up. In fact, Qin Pingan originally had a lot of words, and he wanted to have a good chat with this old man. On the road of life, teenagers and young people always move forward, as if the old people have stopped, and the former is just a memory when they look back. Qin Pingan still clearly remembers that the first time he saw Grandpa Yang, he was squatting outside the door of the pharmacy when he was young. It's only natural for businessmen to make money when you buy things. They'll owe you the credit first, but you have to pay back the money later, and you can't owe a cent to the shop. In the end, the old man asked the child if he understood, and the child stood up, ignorant, and just handed out the money bag that was always tightly held in his left hand. Lu Yin raised his eyes and looked into the distance. His sight stretched all the way like a mountain range. No matter what is right or wrong, the scenery of the mountains and rivers has not changed much, and he said with emotion, In the past I often traveled to the ancient Shu land. I only remember the sky and night of Shu. It is rainy, the dragon is born, and the sword light rises and falls with the wind and rain, which is spectacular. Just talking about that Longji mountain, if I remember correctly, it was first located on the border of ancient Shu. There used to be a cave called Quokeng Cave. Exiled, happy to come from the sea. There are many ancient names of this mountain such as Jinin, Tianbi, Windmill, Liaoning Lamp and so on. Unfortunately, it was destroyed by the sword fairy and the dragon. The first mountain range stretched all the way into the sea, which could be connected with the breath of a certain submarine dragon palace. There is a rushing river in Hangzhou town. The water is extremely strong and it is turbid. The gourd wine is brewed with the water in the heart of the river there. In ancient times there were often thunderstorms during the day, which echoed the current Yuzhou. Therefore, the so-called "this water leads to the sea" in the local county annals is not a word that goes through the chisel. Li Jin, the water of Chongdan River who opened a bookstore in the small town, is actually one of the ancient dragon species, but Li Jin may not know his origin, and has always mistakenly thought that it was the dragon current from Lizhu Cave overflowing into Chongdan. Jiang, he was able to open his mind and refine his shape, or was taken away from Lizhu Cave by the ancient immortals with the Dragon King basket, but it was not the case. As for the dragon-slaying platform which was used by Jianxia to sharpen the sword and regarded as a treasure in later generations, it actually means literally ancient times. The dragon-slaying platform, one of the 2 execution platforms in the heavenly court, was chopped to pieces by Jianxia in the battle of ascending to the sky, and fell to the world, scattered among the heaven and earth. A lot. There is also a piece on the Sword Chi Great Wall. If Pindao remembers correctly, it is your Taoist companion's family treasure? Qin Qinglu, the man who slashed the dragon, used to practice swordsmanship in Quokang Cave for many years. It can be regarded as the place where he ascended to the Tao. Later, the so-called Changxi Dongshan was actually only a part of Quokang Cave, which is equivalent to your Luapa Mountain. Jisei Peak. He killed 14 sword cultivators who set up a life-and-death situation in one go, 8 of them in the 5 realms, 2 of them in the fairy realm, and the remaining 6 nascent souls. Hi, but the supernatural power of every sword cultivator's life-born flying sword is very suitable for siege. What is the killing power of the sword cultivator in the Yuan Jing realm? What will be the effect of siege killing with the flying sword's natural magic power? You are from the Great Wall of Sword Chi, you should. The most clear thing is that the result was still killed by Qin Qinglu. After this battle, more than 10 sword veins were broken in Aquarius. It started to slump. This Taoist Chunyang, who is indefinitely gathered and scattered in the 2 worlds, communicates the ancient and the present and has many illusions. On the road of life we seem to be flipping through books to read others, and we don't know when we can become books that others read carefully and repeatedly. I remember Zheng Dafeng once said a truth: when a person is middle-aged he is not confused at 40. If a person is 40 years old and still does not believe in fate, either his fate is good, or he is not enlightened. Brother Dafeng, who doesn't speak dirty words apart from being a little uglier and having less money in his pocket, is still quite unique. Chen Pingan said sincerely, as the old saying goes, if there is an old man in a family, there is a treasure. In the future, when Senior Lu successfully exits the border, I don't know if I can ask my senior to find an altar to preach for the monks in one continent. As for the location, whether it is Luopao Mountain, Piyun Mountain, or Nanjiang Kingdom Shengazong, Huangliangpai Lushan, or any place in Beipingzu, it doesn't matter. After all, this Chunyang real person, strictly speaking, is the own family of Aquarius. Lu Yen was non-committal about this but just asked with a smile, my family doesn't talk about the 2 families. First there was the battle of Cicada slaughtering the Cave of Heaven, and then there was the battle of slaying the dragon. Since Pindao is a native monk in Aquarius, he has a lot of fate with many dragon palaces. Why didn't he make a move twice? Isn't Chen Shanju curious? Chen Pingan mentioned the sword-raising gourd in the shape of a vermilion wine jug, and lightly knocked it against Lu Yan's purple gourd scoop, like clinking a wine glass. Pure yang without ignorance of cause and effect. After drinking each other, Chen Pingan wiped the corners of his mouth, and Lu Yan smiled knowingly, when you speak you know. If you stay silent you know. Chen Pingan suddenly smiled and said, I visited Edai Peak earlier and heard an old senior say that Xiao is doing things, but he just cares about himself. Everyone is fine. Lu Yan nodded and said, cultivation is one's own business if the world is the home. Chen Pingan was silent for a moment and asked, where will Senior Lu travel next? Lu Yan said, I plan to go to Beiju Luzhou. Pindao and Baigu Jinren once traveled to Baiyujing Green City. In addition, there is a special situation. I owe Master Lu a favor. He Xiaoyang of Qingliang sect, as a new disciple of Lu Zhangjiao, became the head of the sect, and her realm has risen all the way to the current immortal. Because she has a deep blessing and a good aptitude for cultivation, it is easy. This time Sword Immortal Baishang uses seclusion as bait. He Xiaoyang has a very soft and firm personality, and will bite the hook if he is not careful. He must have no worries about life and death, but with Beishang's behavior, this kind of fish that bites on its own will be caught again. When he was thrown into the water, the fish would definitely suffer a lot, but because of the face of Zhangjiao Lu and Tianjun, he would save He Xiaoyang's life, but it would definitely hurt her Dao fundamentals. Falling one level to Yupu is impossible to escape, plus it can make He Xiaoyang just miss the upcoming opportunity, and it will not be easy for He Xiaoyang to step into the Ascension realm step by step. He Zai Liangguang has a senior brother, Chao Rong, and at most Gu Qingsong. Even if the three of them join forces, they are still very reluctant to face an Ascension Realm Sword cultivator who can go out of retreat. It's too big. So Pindao intends to go to the north to have a look after leaving Luapa Mountain. Qin Pingan nodded and said, He Xiaoyang will definitely find trouble with Bai Chang. Lu Yin smiled and joked, Master Qin Shan, you can have so many karmic entanglements with Headmaster Lu. You can count it all over the history. Just saying this is enough to be proud of yourself. Qin Pingan nodded and said solemnly, I have read some Buddhist classics over the years. In addition to the classics, the rest of the koans commented on the ancients and sang the ancients, and they were no less than 8,000. Then I discovered one thing: the eminent monks of all dynasties quoted Lu Qin. There are even more allusions in the writings than all the Confucian sages put together. So no matter who you look down on, you can't look down on this Headmaster Lu. Lu Yin nodded and said, No matter how much we outsiders look at Lu Qin, it may not be Lu Qin's true height. Lu Yin suddenly asked, I don't ask why you mention the origin of the mountains in the west. Could it be that Pindao is just showing off his knowledge with Lord Qin Shan? Qin Pingan thought for a moment, then tentatively asked, Is it reminding the younger generation this is also a kind of Daoization in a broad sense? Lu Yin nodded and said, This may be one of the fundamental differences between Taoism and Buddhism. Qin Pingan frowned slightly, and then his heart suddenly became clear, but he had doubts again. After all, there is a saying in Mahayana Buddhism that, no living beings can't become a Buddha. Just as he was about to say something, Lu Yin smiled and said, This is just the reconciliation method of the later ancestors of Zen. 1. It has little to do with the earlier Tathagata Zen. Senior Chui once gave a saying, Pure martial arts, 7 realms and 8 realms die in their hometown, 9 realms die in their own country, and 10 realms end in this continent. And this Lu Zhu, whose Taoist name is Chunyang, once crossed the threshold of the 14th realm with 1 foot, but exited the door himself, a Taoist real person who chose to travel far away to the Qingming world, which is very easy to explain. Just reverse the premise. A certain sable-capped girl who has been eavesdropping on the conversation on the top of the mountain is dizzy. What are you talking about? Qin Pingan took a deep breath, put away the sword-raising gourd, turned sideways, cupped his hands and clasped his fists and said solemnly, Junior has a big question, so dare to ask Senior for advice. With a smile on his face, Lu Yin waved his hand, indicating that Qin Pingan did not pass the 6 ears. Qin Pingan was horrified, but he didn't even notice that Xiego was eavesdropping, because a restriction similar to a pocket sword array was just set up on the top of the mountain. Lu Yin put his fingers close together, seemingly at will with a slight push. Then there was a pure sword intent that did not have sword energy, which merged with heaven and earth. But at the same time, there was also a hidden sword energy on the other side of the mountain road, which was pushed back to the top of the mountain by Xiego. Lu Yin teased, Do you two count as a courtesy exchange? Qin Pingan was slightly embarrassed. Lu Yin said sternly, You are on Tongya continent, have you tried twice to enter the Jade Purity realm without success? Qin Pingan nodded and said, The demon of the heart is unexpected. I never thought that it would appear in this way. The first time I was caught off guard, and the second time I thought I could rely on the 6 solutions including the rain chapter. It still didn't work out. Lu Yin said with a smile, Xiuhu did give you a big problem. Qin Pingan smiled bitterly and said, How ran in the world if I mention the Great Wall of Sword Qi because of my return to my hometown? I need a last-generation hidden official in the upper 5 realms. So when the Fortune Cave woke up, Qin Pingan, who was still in the nascent soul realm on the side of the Sword Qi Great Wall, inexplicably became the Jade Pure realm. This is actually because Chuiying gave Qin Pingan a realm of jade between authenticity and falsehood. To be honest, Qin Pingan is indeed a jade that breaks the bottleneck on his own, but Qin Pingan himself forgot the specific process. To be false, it is Qin Pingan's mind because Chuiyu erased his memory. There is a gap. In the long run, it is a great legacy, but Chuiyu's solution is simple, waiting for the future junior brother himself. You can return to Yupu after falling. As for Qin Pingan's realm falling and returning again, Chuiyu probably doesn't care at all whether there will be complications during the period, causing the road to rise 1 foot and the devil to rise 1 zhang. From Xiaohu's point of view, if you can't handle such trivial matters well, you don't have to go to the Qingming world to humiliate yourself. Lu Yin didn't ask why the inner demon but just reminded Qin Pingan to be more cautious and not to rush to restore the Jade Realm, and then quickly changed the topic. After all, people's words are terrible and everyone speaks of gold. Mr. Cus' actions are understandable. Is the last hidden official of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, is it a Jade Pure Realm Sword cultivator? It is a watershed. Yes, when it comes to Qin Pingan, it is mostly a compliment. For the Bosch Genxian dares to use people, but if it is only nascent soul, the Howren world's perception of you personally, and even the entire Sword Chi Great Wall, will change. There are so many things in the world and life is not easy. Most of them are just watching one lively event and then waiting for the next one. How can I have the time to find out? People are not ancient. The heart of the ancients is that studying is not easy. Very deep, of course. Today's people also have the advantages and strengths of today's people. These are two paths. The ancients went from 1 to 10,000, and they disprove one of them. First, as the Buddhists say, the Dharma door is boundless and one vows to learn, and eventually one can see the unique Dharma door. For example, when my husband was in the capital city, he could not help but sigh with emotion. If you want to talk about the truth and knowledge in the book, if you only talk about the breadth and not the depth, how can the former sages be able to compare? So is it possible to just pick up a scholar from the academy now and throw it away 10,000 years ago? It is estimated that the original group of scholars will come to ask for advice one by one? Qin Pingan nodded. Of course he could understand the difference, but the hardships here were self-aware. So much so that Qin Pingan even guessed that the inner demon he encountered when trying to break the bottleneck of the nascent soul realm was very likely to be something he would only encounter when he tried to enter the 14 realm after Ascension realm. Care. Lu Yen smiled and said, Master Qin Shan has a good senior brother. Qin Pingan was speechless. Lu Yen put aside the gourd again, turned his head and glanced at the north, and said with a slight sarcasm, Sai Weng loses his horse to know that it is not a blessing. Bai Chang and Na Tianhuan secretly colluded, trying to control the circulation of Kendo in one continent, that is, the two sides. In the end, it failed, otherwise Pindao will return to Aquarius continent now, but he doesn't mind the sword cultivator of Ascension realm or the identity of junior sister Zhou Zi. Pindao is not vegetarian. Including Xiego, the group of people who drank tea at the same table with Jinren Chunyang. In fact, after Qin Pingan and the others took the lead in climbing the mountain, they felt that they were full after drinking tea, so they began to climb the mountain and enjoy the scenery. Among them, only Tsin Yuanji continued practicing boxing and walking. On the contrary, they are faster than Xianwei and Zhou Mili. After so many years, she doesn't feel bored after walking in the same way. Today, being smashed by the real person of Chunyang, Tsin Yuanji has even more fighting spirit. The boy in red robes rode on the white snake. The first time he climbed the mountains, it was not tiring. It was not considered a prohibited act, because before Shanzhu Qin and the foreign Taoist priest climbed the mountain, he probably felt sorry for his hard work, chatted for a long time, and even a special decree of the mountain master was specially issued to allow this incensed little man named Zhiqing to climb the mountain with the white snake named Bai Hong by the little guy, and then come back to Luopao Mountain Dianmao. Xianwei Taoist, nothing will stop them from going up the mountain. The boy in Zhuyi is talking about the righteousness of the rivers and lakes. He bites the bullet and helps to introduce the white-flowered snake from Chiduan Mountain to the mountain owner, Bai Hong. But after learning that the white flower snake was temporarily named Bai Hong today, Shanzhu Qin praised the incense villain, saying that the name was not small because according to the records of the Confucian Book of Rites, Ji Chun the moon, that is, at the end of the spring, on the tail of the spring of a year, there has been a saying since ancient times that the rainbow begins to see, and the rainbow begins to be born, which is the rainbow. If the name Bai Hong had not been known to outsiders like him, or he would have succeeded in refining in the future, it would be good to use Bai Hong as his real name. The white flower snake had already become enlightened and was overjoyed to hear that, but she was unable to speak for the time being, so she shook her head quickly. Outsiders pointed it out, and it was not her own name. If she used it as her real name, whether there was a taboo on the mountain, would she not be able to get the recognition of heaven and earth, and she would often be punished and struck by lightning. Qin Pingan smiled and looked at the real person Chunyang beside him. Lu Yen stroked his beard and nodded, and said with a smile, It is not easy to name the monsters in the mountains, neither the real name is too big, it can't bear the blame, the road is too wide, but it is self-obsessed. I don't know where to go and it shouldn't be too small. It's best to fit in with a landscape. If you don't worry about someone leaking the secret here in Luapa Mountain, and in the end everyone knows your real name, then it's okay to be called Bai Hong. Qin Pingan cupped his hands and smiled and said, Qin Pingan in Luapa Mountain, I wish fellow Taoist Bai Hong a successful form. Lu Yen clenched the sword with one hand, smiled and said, The rainbow cave is blue in the sky, the yin and yang shines in the sun, the strong man stands up to the sword, and the qi stimulates the white rainbow. Pure Yang Lu Yen, I wish fellow Taoist Bai Hong a successful form refining and a smooth practice. Xiego, who has been watching from the sidelines, is amazed. A white-flowered snake that is not as good as an ant. With just a few words he has earned a good fortune. The name Baihong came from the boy in Zhui who made nonsense, and then went to Qin Pingan to make a bridge, intending to let the Taoist Chunyang come to the boat to give the answer, and finally Lu Yen personally recognized Baihong as his real name. This is just like the difference between the talisman and the talisman of the Taoist sect in the Qingming world. A talisman is stamped with a real person's talisman, and its power can be greatly increased. A talisman is in the hands of a judge like a subordinate in a government office, and a real immortal is like a head of the government that leads the people. Only the decree with the official seal can be promulgated, which is justifiable. In the dark, the real name of this Chiduan mountain white flower snake is just like the real person Chunyang came to call the seal, and Qin Pingan of Luopao Mountain served as the witness, accompanied by the signature flower print, the second. Here there is a lot of knowledge hidden around just such a trivial matter. Xiego can see how much Qin Pingan's mind is, how deep the city is. It's no wonder that in today's wild world, those few ascension realms who fill the vacancy of the throne are all obsessed with young hidden officials, always thinking that the Confucian temple and the saints will be able to abduct a yuan from the Qingming world. Why doesn't Bai Zhe simply go directly from the Haoran world? Then Qin Pingan put a sack on it and then threw it into the fat powder cave. The hero was saddened by the beauty pass and the raw rice was cooked, but it was not his own family. When Xiego quietly gathered up that strand of sword energy, the little guy named Zhiqing at this moment sat cross-legged on the back of the white snake, riding a high-headed horse, with an aura of contempt for the world and could not help but sigh. Xianwei Daoist, you are not a big official but you have the most rules. You look at our Qin Shanzhu, how kind and friendly, everything is negotiable. You are a janitor, don't you feel ashamed? Luopao Mountain, the biggest official is Lord Qin Shan. So the smallest official hat is probably the gatekeeper of Daoist Xianwei. Wei Xian said in an angry voice, "What am I ashamed of? The Prime Minister's concierge's third-rank official? The responsibility is not difficult to deal with at ordinary times. Do you want to let the cat and the dog climb the mountain casually?" Xianwei looked down at the boy in Zhui and said with a smile, "When you are a high-ranking official, you are indeed approachable and amiable on the surface, but it is only because you can't speak harshly with you at all. When you go up a few levels, you will have the opportunity to have more opportunities with Qin Shanzhu. When you get in touch, you will understand a truth. The boy in Zhui is bad. He has already prepared a small account book, but his face is deliberately surprised and he urged, "Oh? What a reason, how to say it, what will happen when I become a big official?" Xianwei said, "You will find that our mountain master is really approachable." The boy in Zhui failed to succeed and gave a thumbs up to the Daoist Xianwei. Xiego rolled his eyes, "I was obedient, and the atmosphere of Luopa Mountain is really good." The left guardian of Qilong Lane, who had been able to cultivate a human form long ago, but refused to do so, followed Pidian by the sable-cap girl. It is afraid of Pei Qian. There are 100 reasons the past is unbearable. But it naturally got close to this sable-hat girl, but it seemed like something unreasonable. Otherwise it can't be because the other party's name has the word dog in it. When they came to the top of the mountain, the sable-cap girl saw the two figures beside the railing, so she wanted to get close and talk a little more, mainly the Taoist priest with the Taoist name Chunyang, which made Xiego feel that it was not easy, so I had to ask a question. The matter, whether the other party has been to the Huoyang Palace, is different from the bright moon in each world and blessed land. Later generations of great monks can build long-term dojos. Even 10,000 years ago, there were countless moon households who were able to join the ranks. Among them, only in the round of Great Sun, in the past 10,000 years, no cultivator has dared to say that he is the master, and the realm is as high as the white scene. In the round of Scorching Sun in the wild world, she can still only be regarded as the master. Stay temporarily. This involves an inside story because even if the sun and the moon are all imitations of a high-ranking god, the latter tends to be more realistic, while the former is more mysterious, with countless numbers outside the sky, but the mystery lies in the fact that all the big suns hanging in the void can lead to the only Huoyang Palace. Even if the old heaven becomes a ruin, this palace still exists and is intact, but it is different from the monks. Going to the same Huoyang Palace, they seem to be automatically diverted, and they go to the river sections located in different time and long rivers. After the real master, I believe that no one wants to see each other. The summer resort in the world, the Guanghan Hall in the sky, the primordial Qi cave was carved out by chaos, and the old dragon monopolized the Shuijing Palace. The Dragon Palace and the Water Mansion all like to build the Water Palace, the dog festival in the world, and the autumn here is very autumn, so it is praised as a cool country by the xianxia. And that Danshao Jiangke Huiyang Palace is now said to be one of the imperial families by Taoists. In Xiego's view, it is not nonsense. As for the ancient dragon clan, one of the thresholds for proving the Tao is whether they can go to the Huiyang Palace to listen to the Taoist teaching from the real person. Xiego could see that this Lu Yin was closely related to the ancient Jiaolong. Seeing Xiego moving, Zhou Li seemed to be going to the good man's side, so he hurriedly stopped on the road and immediately felt it was inappropriate, so he quickly turned to his side, gently grabbed Xiego's sleeve, lowered his voice and said anxiously, "Miss Xie, the Mountain of Good People mainly talks about business affairs with the old immortal Lu. Miss Xie will go later, no rush, just a moment." Xiego shook his hands, then put his arms around his chest, turned his head to look at the little water monster about the size of the white-haired boy. The right guardian is such a powerful official. The grains of millet scratched their faces. Chen Pingan also put his arms around his chest, leaning against the railing, looking at the sable-capped girl who seemed to have a bad memory. Xiao Mo, with a yellow hat, green shoes and green bamboo stick, appeared beside Xiego out of thin air. He first nodded his thanks to Jinren Chunyang, and then stretched out his hand to hold Xiego's shoulder. Xiego raised his hand and was about to touch the back of Xiao Mo's hand, but Xiao Mo immediately raised his elbow against his cheek. The sable-capped girl was not angry but happy, grinned, tilted her head and said vaguely, "You come on, I'm playing with the right protector." Millet grinned and nodded vigorously, yes, we're just kidding, haha Mr. Mo, your Taoist companion Miss Xie, her cheeks are flushed red and she is quite tall. Xiao Mo retracted his hand and rubbed his eyebrows. I don't know how to explain my relationship with Beijing to Xiaomi. Mi Chen Pingan waved to the millet grains. The millet ran quickly and stood still. Chen Pingan took out the water talisman that was not known for the time being and said with a smile, "Senior Lu gave it to you. You're welcome, just accept it." With an embarrassed look on his face, Mi Li bowed to the old fairy Lu and quickly opened the cotton satchel, and carefully invited the talisman into his Zhu Shi Tang. "It's amazing, and I have another general under my command." Lu Yin smiled and said, "The name of this talisman is Dragon Gate, which was originally created by Pindao himself. Directly into the Yellow River Xiaodongshan." Xiao Mo smiled, "If this is not a big talisman, there are too few big talismans in the world." As expected of a master who was called Lu Zhu by the young master, he was able to appear in the town demon building together with the most holy master. Xiego sighed faintly to say that envy is not enough, a talisman that can let the water descendants in the world directly cross the Dragon Gate, but the problem is that in this talisman the word pure yang really means like. The two-door gods and the little water monster held this talisman, and at a critical juncture the more monks on the mountain, the more they knew the importance of the stakes. Millet grains can't close their mouths with laughter. Nuanshu sister, Jingqing, Hongxiao worship, Yunzi. There is only one precious talisman, it seems that it is not enough. Chen Pingan stretched out his hand to hold his little head and said with a smile, "Don't think about giving it away, keep it for yourself." Millet patted the cotton satchel and said happily, "If you don't give it away, you won't be willing to use it, you must treasure it." Previously in King Shandu, one big and one small nibbling on melon seeds, the little girl in black sat on the stone, swaying her feet leisurely, chatting with the guests, the things about Luopao Mountain and Qingping Sword Sect. I will never say much. Half a sentence. She has a lot of experience in the rivers and lakes, but she was worried that the senior would be bored, so she just chatted about her own little things, nothing more than watching the fat, thin, white clouds passing by the door and helping her. They take names one by one. The Taoist Chunyang said with a smile, the honor and disgrace lined up outside the door, and the blessing followed after the pour. The little girl felt very reasonable and applauded softly. Then I tentatively said, Taoist Chunyang, I have a friend, just a friend on the mountain. Her realm is too low, but the mountain is very large, so my friend is always as small as his ability when he goes out. What to do? At this moment, Xiego was standing beside Xiaomo and said solemnly, Xiaomo, I ran into a pavilion on the side of the road and I met the mountain master by chance and we had a good chat. Your son and I were really good friends and he even offered me a drink. There is a pot of wine, this is not made up by me. If you don't believe it, you can ask your son to go later. Our mountain master also invited me to go back to Luapa Mountain, otherwise it will be my strong and stubborn temper. Can you run back here by yourself to make fun of yourself? In the tent. By the way, Xiaomo, don't get me wrong, don't think too much, although you are alone, but you can't trust me, you must trust you, my son. In short, we were at Xingting at the time and we were discussing knowledge and learning, getting along with each other and having a drink. It was a pleasant conversation. I think Shanju is a really good person worthy of admiration. The family background is a bit poor, but the book does not say a truth. Unlimited Zhu's disciples died of hunger. How many white houses came out of Gongqing? Look at Fulu Street in Taoyuan Lane, there are many high-class children, that is, with Xiaofu Xiaogui is a little bit on the side so he doesn't look at people directly. He wants to have a limited future, but we mountain owners are different. We have earned a big family business based on our skills, but he is still immobile and young. Lightness, prudence and boundless blessings. I think I have figured out a truth. There are really smart people in the world. They are dumb and graceful, and they are far-sighted. I have a better eye for picking people. By the way, Xiaomo, I have been studying diligently recently and my knowledge has skyrocketed. That Susie writes lyrics is unique, the frame is absolutely irresistible, and he also learns from your son, put aside the metric for the time being, in the guest time poetry volume, colored brush inscriptions on tongue leaves, good sentences ask for peace. Xinhua news reign in the sound, it's New Year's in spring, and there are even more beautiful flowers. If you like it, use it. The word safe is embedded in the poem. Your son will definitely like it when you hear it. At first Xiaomo planned to pretend to be deaf and dumb. The more he heard the back, the more awkward it became. He couldn't bear it anymore. He said with a dark face, "How much knowledge are you going to steal from Mr. Zhu?" Xiego Shui scratched his face and said with a dry smile, "There are only so many words. We scholars who copy from the east to the west all borrow knowledge from each other and do not need to return it. How can it be called plagiarism?" A rickety old man with his hands behind his back just walked up the steps with a smile, stopped for a moment, and when he heard Xiego's last words, the old cook immediately retreated, went back to the house and slipped away. "Xiaomo, monsieur, you two just take care of me and he'll cook my dishes." Millet with sharp eyes saw the figure of the old cook and immediately said goodbye to the good mountain master and Chunyang Daoist, and said hello to Mr. Xiaomo in the middle, and ran to Zhu Lian all the way walking down the steps together. He patted the cotton satchel, then put his hand to his mouth and whispered, "Old cook, there is a treasure." Zhu Lian held back his smile and asked, "What baby, can I eat it?" Millet put her feet together, jumped down the steps and laughed, "Guess a riddle," walks arrogantly, the demon panics. Zhu Lian suddenly realized, it turned out to be a pagoda town demon talisman. Millet grinned and said, "It's different. My name is the Dragon Gate Talisman. Pei Qian can treasure her pagoda town demon talisman. It was difficult for me to see each other before. When Pei Qian was a child, it seemed that only when he was in a bad mood would he take out the talisman, put it on his forehead and play with it." Zhu Lian nodded with a smile. When he was a little black charcoal back then, when he encountered something he was afraid of, he liked to stick a talisman on his forehead to strengthen his courage. Otherwise he was tired from walking. "I have increased my internal strength by at least 100%. In the words of Pei Qian at that time, I had a house on my forehead, and I was swaggering around the rivers and lakes. How could I be tired? Follow master's side, climb the mountains and mountains together, and ride the clouds and mists." "Yes, how did you grow up?" Zhu Lian took millet grains to the outside of a house, knocked on the door, and someone in the courtyard was practicing sword stove staking. He opened his eyes and said with a smile, "Mr. Zhu, right protector?" Zhu Lian nodded with a playful expression. "Zhao Shuxia, you will finally worship the true Buddha from tomorrow." Zhao Shuxia was at a loss. Millet's lips moved slightly, reminding Zhao Shuxia of the answer. Because on the way here the old cook told her that Hao Rinshan was officially a master, and for the first time in his life he taught boxing to his disciples in a real sense. Zhao Shuxia instantly became nervous. Zhu Lian smiled and said, "Zhao Shuxia, it's right to be nervous. After all, I have been young for 30 years and qualified to learn boxing on the second floor of the bamboo building. There are only 3 people. I believe there will not be many more in the future, maybe even the 3rd one. People are the last person, so cherish them." The 3 learned boxing on the second floor of the bamboo building: Chen Pingan, Pei Qian and Zhao Shuxia. Chen Pingan and Pei Qian learned boxing from Cui Cheng. From tomorrow Zhao Shuxia will learn boxing with Chen Pingan. On the second floor of the bamboo building, there are 4 pure martial artists in total, teaching boxing and learning boxing, and as a result, there are 3 great masters of the limit. Because Zhu Lian had an intuition, under the Zhao tree in front of him would be the closed disciple of the mountain master Chen Pingan in Boxing 1. Sword of Coming Chapter 986. In spring the trees are blooming like brocade, and flocks of orioles in the mountains rise and fall. Lu Yin smiled and said, "As a sect, Luopao Mountain has fewer cultivators. Obviously, there are more than 10 vassal hilltops, and there are few people in the mountains, which is also a miracle. In my impression, on the Beiju Luzhou side, the lying peak of Huolong Jinren is already considered a few immortal Taoists in the Haoran sect. It still has 4 Taoist veins. Ghosts are the deepest in the world. The Taoshan monks are proficient in thunder, and the Baiyun lineage trainers are good at talisman formation. In addition, Yuan Lingdian's Zhixuan line belongs to the Daomen Sword Immortal School. Together, the 4 magic lines add up to more than 100. There must be a Taoist priest. On the other hand, Luopao Mountain has never had the kind of large-scale branching and dispersing of ordinary immortal mansions. It may be that when it comes to accepting apprentices, the members of the Patriarch Hall have high thresholds. Chen Pingan smiled and said, Shui Dongshan's Qingping Sword Sect, the number of people may double in a few years. If there are dates and no dates, we will have 3 poles. Our sect Master Chui has great ambitions and promises that every time he will attend the next sect in the future. Zong, the mighty cross-continent to worship ancestors, must surpass Luapa Mountain in numbers, and must not lose momentum. Later, Lu Yen took the initiative to say that he wanted to pay respects to the incense at Ji Sifeng Patriarch Hall. Although Chen Pingan was a little surprised, it was a pleasant surprise after all, and of course he would not refuse such a good thing. Lu Yen said with a smile that when he was wandering in the Qingming world, he had been fortunate enough to participate in the 3-religion debate several times, and most of them wanted to doze off, but the debate that Wen Xing participated in was the most exciting and refreshing. Gong drilling pot umbrella, chain, teaching, chanting. It's just that they were about to move when a white-haired boy with a book and a chicken span pen, hung a sword talisman issued by Longquan Jianzong on his waist, and rushed to the wind. Previously, the ancestor of the hidden official allowed her, a handyman disciple, to compile the chronology and record the arrival of distinguished guests, which was also the responsibility of the editor. The mountain patrol envoy of the little water monster inside is the same. Just now he was on the side of Riding Dragon Lane, and this outer demon noticed the vision on the top of the second peak of Luapa Mountain, and was shocked. The white-haired boy hurried to the top of the steps of Qilong Lane, staring wide-eyed at Luopao Mountain. Falling to the ground. He performed a chi technique that was secretly passed down from the palace, and saw layers of crimson halos blooming. Even if the white-haired boy was far away in Qilong Alley, just looking at it from a distance, he felt like he was in the middle of several fire dragons. In the circling furnace, after a battle between heaven and man, the white-haired boy still came to Luapa Mountain bravely. Lu Yen glanced at the white-haired boy and was quite surprised. In that Huaihuang County, there was actually an Ascension Realm Transfiguration demon? Isn't it taboo at the Confucian Temple? However, Lu Yen was soon relieved. The Confucian Temple should have known about this long ago, and chose to turn a blind eye. What's more, Qin Pingan has a senior like Cui Yu to help protect the Tao, and a gentleman like Lao Xiaocai restores the position of the idol in the Confucian Temple. Qin Pingan said in his heart, "It's hard to say a word." Lu Yen nodded. Every family has a hard-to-recite scripture, so I don't ask any more questions from an outsider. The reason why the Confucian Temple side is willing to acquiesce to this is mainly because this outer demon is from the Great Wall of Sword Qi. The 3 Confucian leaders and vice presidents, the academy and many Confucian temples to accompany the sages, may not give face to a young hidden official, but must give face to the eldest sword fairy. After seeing the Taoist Chunyang, the white-haired boy became more and more panicked, as if he jumped into the alchemy furnace and turned around, regretting that he should not come, absolutely should not come. This Taoist priest, I don't know what magical powers he cultivated, was able to naturally defeat the outer demons. Lu Yen had to deliberately gather a Taoist method, condensing it into a grain of true yang, which was entrenched in one of the acupuncture points of life, and ripples appeared on his Taoist robe imperceptibly. The white-haired boy was instantly relieved, and with a stubborn temper, he thanked the real person. Chen Pingan introduced with a smile. This Master Lu, whose name is Chunyang, was born in our Aquarius continent. Senior Lu, her name is Kong Ho, has not joined Jiaisfeng's genealogy for the time being, and is helping out at Qilong Lane. Now I'm in charge of compiling Shantao's chronology. The main peak of Luopao Mountain is Jiling Peak. The Zushi Hall is built on the side of Jisa Peak, the second peak. Chen Pingan took Lu Yen to Jisa Peak. Xiao Mo, who put a hand on the head of the sable-cap girl, as well as the white-haired boy in Xianwei, also came here to join in the fun. It was said that it happened to be a grand event, and it was necessary to leave a memorial. The chronology she compiled had to be distinguished from the chronology of ordinary sections. Chen Pingan was at a loss, so he didn't rush to say whether he agreed or not. Writing a chronology is a very serious matter. How can this guy still be a monster? The white-haired boy said that he is actually a deeply hidden landscape painter. It is rare for everyone to gather on the side of Jisa Peak. It is better to use the Zhushitang as the background. Everyone stands in line and sits. The chair, anyway, is to leave a famous painting similar to the elegant collection. In this way the chronology will be vivid. On a certain day of a certain year, the mountain owner and the distinguished guest, the real person Chunyang, were outside the patriarch's hall of Jisfeng. Xiao Mo, the gatekeeper Xianhui, etc., are enshrined in a landscape painting scroll. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "The chronology with paintings, in addition to the written records, there are illustrations and they are also painted, right? Is this what you call different?" He has regretted letting this guy compile the chronology of the abbot. Well, before the next meeting of the Ancestors' Hall is officially held, he has to talk to Zhu Lianyuanshu and the others. I personally recommended you to take up this position, but only the owner of the mountain nodded, no one agreed, all objected, and it was useless. Xiego gave up pestering Xiao Mo, straightened his sable hat with both hands, patted his cheek and echoed loudly, "Okay, this is a good idea, I want to stand by Xiao Mo's side." I never thought that Lu Yen smiled and said, "When I paint a picture in front of a patriarch's hall, it will also be compiled into the chronology. Is the first new thing that Pindao thinks is good." The white-haired boy was grateful, sniffed, and finally met his confidant. "The Taoist priest Chunyang is really nice. No wonder the Taoist cultivation base is so high. First get the 14 realms, and then let Ji Sifeng be the deputy mountain master in name." Qin Pingan had no choice but to follow Konghao's message, "But you are the mastermind, so don't even try to run away." The white-haired boy first made the 5 people stand in a row, and walked to the opposite side first, where he was choking on the steps, jumping and humming, and directly saw Qin Pingan's face sullen. "What would you do there?" Seeing the unhappy expression of the ancestor of the hidden official, the white-haired boy hurriedly stood still, his hand sank into his dantian, and he twisted his wrist again, and a figure of a woman with an indistinct figure appeared on the spot, wiping his left hand, spread out a picture. The snow-white painting scroll, and then lifted the sleeve on the right, holding a colored pen lingering in the color of multicolored glass in the right, and was about to start painting. Qin Pingan's face was expressionless, it was quite the same thing. The owner of the mountain, Qin Pingan, and the guest Lu Yen, stood in the middle together with Xiao Mo and Xiego, Xianhui and Kongho on the left and right. Before the woman with the crayon pen began to write, she carefully looked at everyone's raised heads, her voice was clear and she said with a smile, "Sir Shanju, don't be stern, give a little smile. It's still not sincere enough, you have to come from the heart. By the way, it is too lazy to put your hands in your sleeves, and it is too arrogant when you put your hands on your sleeves. It is better to stack your hands. Forget it, let your arms hang down naturally. Look at the side, Daoist Chunyang is very good, calm and relaxed, holding the sword on his back, he is indeed immortal. Xianhui Daoist, are you too nervous? Hurry up, wipe the sweat off your forehead and you want posted on the streets of Huaihuan County. Don't be too cautious, take a deep breath, alas it's much better now. My good Kongho, don't laugh so unladylike, close your mouth, do you want to eat people? Thank you dog. Don't put your toes on your toes. Keep your head straight and don't push yourself into Xiao Mo's arms. The posture of arms around your chest is also good, even if you lower your head a little bit, your nostrils will be turned upside down. Xiao Mo, you don't need to be next to Xiego shoulder to shoulder, but don't push her. This day is the 6th year of Junpei Dali, the 22nd day of the 1st month. Luopao Mountain Jisfeng Zhushitang Square. The owner of the mountain, Qin Pingan, has a white jade hairpin on his head, a green shirt, long coat and cloth shoes. The gatekeeper of Luopao Mountain, a Taoist priest, wears a cotton robe and treads on cloud shoes, and the Taoist name is Xianhui. Sanxian Lu Yen, the Taoist name is Chunyang. Dedicated to Xiao Mo, yellow hat, green shoes and green bamboo stick, pseudonym unfamiliar, Taoist name Shizhu. The girl in the mink hat, now her pseudonym Xiego, has a long list of Taoist names, Beijing, Chaohua, exterior, Yaoling, etc. The white-haired boy, transformed into a demon, his pseudonym is Kongho, his real name is Natural. There are 6 in total, one of them is a warrior of the limit, 4 of the ascension, and a fake Taoist priest of the next 5. When the white-haired boy overlapped with the woman, who put away the crayons, Qin Pingan and Lu Yen went down the mountain together, and Xiao Mo silently followed behind them. The sable-capped girl came to the white-haired boy and winked. The white-haired boy's nose is not nose and eyes not eyes, well. Xiego stretched out his hand, don't pretend to be stupid with me Malur, cut it out quickly, it's enough to have me and Xiao Mo on the picture scroll, send me a picture and keep it as a souvenir. The white-haired boy put his arms around his chest and snorted coldly, This kind of landscape painting in your realm, you can draw whatever you want. Ask me for anything. Xiago's eyes were indifferent for a moment, staring at the white-haired short melon for a moment. Kongho tilted his head and stretched his neck, indicating that the other party had the ability to chop here. There is a hidden official ancestor afraid of you? The Ascension Realm Perfect Sword Cultivator, amazing. Oh hey, I really scared a person to death, haha, I'm not a person. The sable-capped girl laughed suddenly, showing a somewhat flattering look for the first time, lowered her head and rubbed her hands and whispered, how can we be the same, our good sisters? There is nothing we can't negotiate. Do you want money? Let's talk open. Price, how much snow cost? The white-haired boy stretched out his hand and patted his heart, pretending to be horrified, and his words were accurate. I don't know who just wanted to kill someone with their eyes. The corners of Xiago's mouth twitched and he laughed and said, there are a lot of adults. The Prime Minister can punt a boat in his stomach, and I am a cardamom girl who cares about something. The white-haired boy wants to say something. Xiago turned his head to look at him deliberately, and said to himself, the three of them have gone a little far. The white-haired boy immediately smiled more flatteringly, his face turned into a flower, and he took out a cutout sketch from his sleeve. The fine brushwork and freehand brushwork blended together, and the sketches were exquisite and old-fashioned. There are only Xiago and Xiaomo standing side by side, but I don't know when there is a new signature on the painting. After the white-haired boy handed over the painting, he raised his head and said sincerely, Sister Xia, for the mounting, do you need it? Do it for you? Xiago held the scroll and slapped the white-haired boy on the shoulder with one hand and said brightly, Kongho, I owe you a favor and I will help you cut people in the future. On the way down the mountain, Qin Pingan asked, Senior Lu, the number of strange people in the Qingming world is relatively vast. How many or few? Lu Yin smiled and said, a strange person? How to define it? So it's hard to say. But if you just talk about the realm, the number of monks on the top of the two mountains in the world is not much different for the time being. It's only temporary. As for changing the sky, a game after the rain falls, the next 100 years will be very chaotic. Some Ascension realms have a great chance to be included in the 14 realms. There are also old and new 14 realms monks who let go of their hands and feet to kill the Ascension realm. As for taking advantage of the time, before the game is decided, seize the opportunity. The old grievances between the Ascension realms will end, or the new feud between you and me will be revived. I believe there will only be more. Originally, the wild world that respects pure freedom the most, because there is one more by Zay, it may be the most stable world. I heard that in the Western Buddhist countries, there are Zen masters who advocate the line of thought, and Buddhist monks who keep strict precepts. The lawyer faction is about to evolve into a situation where the situation is the same. In addition, Tantric Buddhism and Zen Buddhism, as well as Zen Buddhism, have great disagreements about the legal system of a famous monk in history, so that they each compile ancestral genealogy, and they all want to put it together. It is allocated to the genealogy of its own legal lineage, because it directly involves the position of the two prominent Buddhist schools. It is not a trivial matter which side should sit on. There are Buddhist dragon elephants who try their best to blur their boundaries, but the differences are still not small. A few years ago, a monk only dared to take the opinion that the world has been suffering for a long time. From the opinion in the heart to a statement, and it began to gradually circulate among the 14 state officials. Baiyujing did not seem to deliberately suppress this kind of discussion. There is already a momentum of wildfire. The teacher who sits in Baiyujing is Yudo himself. Don't worry, no matter what, there are only a handful of people like Pindao 3,000 years ago and 3,000 years later. Approaching the foot of the mountain, Lu Yen said, Qin Shanju doesn't need to continue sending. Qin Pingan stopped. Lu Yen smiled and said, flowing water for thousands of years, it turns with the mountains, entering the temple to burn incense and leaving the mountain gate. You need to practice separately. Qin Pingan nodded and said, 100 years of people down the mountain have 10,000 years of heart, and monks on the mountain often live 100 years and 1,000 years. The so-called practice is only this one. Lu Yen asked, didn't receive an invitation? Qin Pingan said helplessly, even if I am invited, I don't dare to go, and I will not agree to anyone who persuades me. Lu Yen said, this is because you haven't really convinced yourself, so it's not good to say too much. There was a metaphor for the white bone master, which is like fighting in groups and raising Gus. Qin Pingan thought for a moment, it's a good metaphor. Lu Yen bowed his head and said, see you next time. There will be Lord Lao Qin to help protect the Tao. Qin Pingan returned the salute. I must do my best to live up to the expectations of my predecessors. Lu Yen pointed to the top of the mountain with a whisk, Fellow Taoist Kong Ho Fang Kai once spoke from his heart and invited Pin Dao to be the deputy mountain owner of your Luapa mountain, and kept saying that it was her own intention, and it had absolutely nothing to do with the mountain owner. It's not like they're in the same line, don't care if there are dates or not, let's try 3 polls first. Chin Pingon smiled awkwardly so he had to hand over again. How offended, I apologize for Kong Ho and Senior. Lu Yen waved his hand, just get used to it. Chin Pingon asked with his heart, dare to ask the senior Lin Jiangxian of the Qingming world, how is his boxing? Lu Yen smiled and said, this Master Lin has extremely high boxing skills and superior swordsmanship. Chin Pingon didn't ask any more questions. Lu Yen said, send a fire talisman, and the opportunity between Pin Dao and Xuanhuan has come to an end. Fortunately, it is a good start and a good end. As for the fate of the future, I will just go with the fate. Chin Pingon nodded. Lu Yen took back the whisk, looked around and said, a mountain needs 100 flowers to bloom, don't be silent, and it turns out that everyone learns who is not. 10 steps of vanilla is better than a tree that towers into the sky. Xiao Mo said, Taoist Chunyang, I don't dare to say anything else. This truth is said by Taoist priests for nothing. My son has done the best in this matter. Lu Yen nodded with a smile. Pin Dao is used to being in the market. Before leaving, if he doesn't shake a few words of immortal masters, he always feels that something is wrong. Please forgive me. Xiao Mo smiled and said, then I will also invite Taoist Chunyang to come to Luopao Mountain to be the deputy mountain master. Sincerely, I will never be polite. Lu Yen tooted his tongue in admiration and said, you guys are really powerful, and you can't stand the pure Yang Dao method of Pin Dao. Chen Pingon said with guilt, I'm the one who has been the hand-sucking shopkeeper for too many years. I'm not majestic enough. One by one I'm too quiet. According to an unwritten rule on the mountain, visiting the mountain and entering the mountain gate, leaving the mountain and exiting the mountain gate, after Lu Yen arrived at the foot of the mountain, he directly performed the contraction. Daifa, one step across the small half of Aquarius Island, came to the northernmost Xinjia ferry, raised his eyes to look at Beiju Luzhou in the north, and performed the vision technique. It seemed that he Xiaoyang would not make a move for the time being, so Lu Yen shrank the mountains and rivers again, and came to the sea in an instant, took a closer look, waved the dust and split the sea at will, setting off a huge wave of hundreds of feet, and the Taoist figure flashed. After passing away, he went to the ruins of a submarine dragon palace that had not yet been found by the true dragon King Zhu. The numerous restrictions were in vain, and the Taoist Chunyang walked in the courtyard as if he were no one. On the way up the mountain, Xiao Mo reminded in his heart, Master, Xiego has a temperamental temperament. If she stays in Luopao Mountain, she may stab her at any time and place. Why don't I find a way? For pure sword cultivators, especially the Wild Monster clan, the way of looking at the world outside themselves is actually very simple. It is to carefully consider the combat power, and facing different cultivators, they need to hand out a few swords. In Bai Jing's eyes, even if she is a reclusive master who can't see the depth of Taoism, she is not at all embarrassed. If it was in the wild world, Bai Jing would have even taken the initiative to challenge the sword. Since you can't see the depth of Taoism, then type an answer. Chin Pingon joked, how? What is the method? Do you agree with your body? Xiao Mo, are you a dead man like you and you still need to sell your color? Xiao Mo hesitated. Chin Pingon said, I know what you think, follow her a rule similar to the 3rd chapter of the contract, and tell her that if she acts beyond the bounds, you will sacrifice the flying sword of life. Of course you are serious and Bai Jing will believe you. It's serious, but I don't think it's necessary. It's okay, don't worry about it all the time. Since I promised to let her go back to the mountain, you can relax and just practice the sword well, motherfucker. This Bai Jing, previously saying that your aptitude is not as good as hers, will make me mad a lot, and I guess you have heard it, so Xiao Mo, you must practice hard. Xiao Mo said helplessly, I have never slacked off my cultivation for a while following the young master. Otherwise, it is impossible to find a way to enter the 14 realms, it is just a step too late. Chin Pingon smiled and said, the Taoist ancestor visited the town before and asked me about my views on cultivating Taoism. I once replied with a poem by Su Zi, Danzhou Yunxia and Chen Jiangchao. Danzhou Yunxia Chen Jiang Tide. Xiao Mo smiled knowingly. Su Zi is known as the sect of Ci, but this poem is very zen. A scholar talked about this with Dao Zhu, the only person in the world. Chen Pingon learned from his husband's tone, sighed and complained, don't talk nonsense, it's you who think too much, I don't have such a competitive idea. Chen Pingon explained, the reason why I talk about this is to tell you that love between men and women is often the same way. I think about it and I can't ask for it. In fact, it's just the Danzhou Yunxia Qianjiang tide in my heart. Hate 1,000 kinds of grievances, how can one word of sorrow be so good? But when it really succeeds, Danzhou Yunxia Qianjiang Chao is still Danzhou Yunxia Qianjiang Chao, but the heart has changed, the wind is moving, the flag is moving, and the heart is just moving. I'm not worried about what Xiego will do now, I'm just worried that one day you will really like her, and then the situation will be reversed. You said it yourself, Bai Jing's temperament is uncertain, and his love from strong to shallow, then it will be your turn. You've started to pay off your debts and you have to suffer. I don't want to see you drinking alcohol every day to drown your sorrows, sloppy like an alcoholic. As for why I am more tolerant towards Xiego, I naturally feel that she can still love someone even after 10,000 years. After 10,000 years, in order to be able to meet again, I took the initiative to cross 2 worlds to find this person. An amazing thing. Xiaomo was silent. Qin Pingan said, Xiaomo, take 10,000 steps back and say that even if you still don't like her, you should know what to do. Don't just get bored, at least be a little patient with your usual words. Xiaomo nodded and suddenly said, Young master's reasoning does sound reasonable, but it seems that it is not convincing for you. Young master and Ning girl, from the time you meet and know each other to the time when you miss each other and love each other. No change of heart. Qin Pingan moved very fast and blinked. Xiaomo was puzzled. Qin Pingan didn't explain anything, just patted Xiaomo's shoulder, wrapped his sleeves with his hands again, and slowly climbed the mountain. Xiaomo, it's not without reason that you and Xiego can make a pair. They have high realm and few ideas. In short, they are simple and easy to deceive. This is called the same thing is not the same. As far as Bai Jing's stubborn temper is concerned, you mustn't be angry with me. One day you will change your mind and like her, and you will like your little Mo even more? The sable-capped girl and the white-haired boy, who had just become friends, squatted on the white jade railing at the edge of the square, stretched their necks together and listened. The white-haired boy asked curiously, Sister Xia, what did the ancestor of the hidden officer talk about with your man? Xiego rubbed his sable hat. The heartfelt words between the 2 big men are mostly scolding me, so I'm sincere, but am moved by listening to them. The white-haired boy was very curious. What are we talking about? Let's talk about it. Xiego suddenly said, I don't stand or sit, I just squat, my posture is indecent, and it looks like I'm squatting in a dung pit. The white-haired boy laughed. Xiego had a whim, Kongho, let's form a small gang for example, let's pull the left guardian-law into the gang first. Isn't the official title given casually? The white-haired boy frowned, Xia Fengguan, there is no gold content, it seems difficult to convince the public. And there are only so many people in Luapa Mountain, it is difficult to deceive people into the pit. Alas, if I knew I had promised the ancestor of the hidden official, go to Tong Yezhou to fool a few new faces who don't know the details. Xiego nodded, then don't worry, to build a great success and become a great businessman, you must have a long-term plan, make a long-term plan and make an appointment later, let's discuss it carefully. The white-haired boy said, we study so much and you have a lot of money. I learned to be rich in 5 cars, but don't be a scholar and rebel for 10 years. Xiego rubbed his chin, looking a little frowning, and then he stretched his brows and punched his fists. This is called a general, a boy who learns from leisure, and a gentleman is easy to live. The white-haired boy nodded vigorously, this is a bit learned. Zhou Mili's gang is incomparable with the small hilltop that only has the 2 of us for now. It's far from it. Why are you so close to Qin Pingan? No matter what it is very hard to pretend that it is not. For example, Qin Pingan, he is a man who once only heard a certain story of Lu Laoqing Gonglu Island, and his face is full of tears. The infatuation kind who broke his heart, so he actually sympathized with me in his heart, but he never sympathized with me at all, which made me very grateful. Yeah, I don't know how to worry about this body, I'm most afraid if I see gentleness. The white-haired boy rolled his eyes, if Zhu Lian hadn't said this, I would have eaten shit. If Zhu Lian is willing to show the truth and hold a few more spectacles, I can be sure that within a year, there will be at least 100 female cultivators willing to change their families and come to Luopao Mountain to practice. Xiego agreed and nodded. If you only talk about appearance, my family Xiao Mo and Mr. Zhu are probably 100 different Qin Pingan. The white-haired boy turned his face and said, Miss Xia, friends are friends, I won't allow you to belittle the hidden official ancestor like this. Then it's only 10? It's almost there. A flying sword of life quietly left. Xiego grinned, thinking that Feijin turned into a void, and was hidden in the Taoist meaning of that stinky cow-nosed old Taoist left in the mountains, like a fish in a deep abyss. Xiego took out a pot of wine, which was a market-placed shochu sold by the caddy in the town. After taking a sip of wine, he was silent for a long time and suddenly asked, "Worry-free and unfettered, and become neither ghost nor immortal, will you hold any resentment?" The white-haired boy snorted and said indifferently, "The grass and trees in the mountains and the crops in the fields each have their own lives, what they want and what they can do." Xiego drank wine. "If you are not free, will you be free too?" The white-haired boy was silent for a long time, then suddenly raised his fists, raised his arms and shouted, "I want to understand, victory or defeat is here." Xiego said, "Don't be so rude." The white-haired boy lowered his voice and said, "Sister Xia, if you want the latecomers to come out on top, the limelight will surpass the lineage of President Pei and the short winter melon, and there is a crucial winner." Xiego asked, "Mr. Zhu?" The white-haired boy shook his head and grinned, "Guizhujiu." There Xiaomo found that the young master took out the sword-raising gourd again, took a sip of wine and looked gloomy. Qin Pingan said, "Xiaomo, you said that in the future, for example in 100 years, 200 years or even longer, Luopao Mountain will also have a scale of hundreds or even thousands of people. If we look back at today, will we feel somewhat unfamiliar?" Xiaomo smiled and said, "Probably yes, probably not." Qin Pingan laughed angrily, "Idlers don't have back pain when they stand and talk." After that, Xiaomo went back to the house to practice his sword, and Qin Pingan went to the bamboo building, and continued to struggle with how to write the preface of a certain boxing manual. With the shaking mountain fist manual in front of Zhuyu, Qin Pingan had been having a headache all the time. He sat at the desk for a long time in a daze and simply went to read. Silent Night. Qin Pingan opened the door, stepped on the green bricks laid on the ground with Cui Dongshan, and walked back and forth in 6 steps. Going back to the house again, taking off his cloth shoes, he didn't want to do anything, so he fell asleep. How could Qin Pingan be selfish? He is so serious about Chao Yin and Chao Yang's teaching boxing. Zhao Shuxia is a direct disciple who has entered the ancestral hall. Naturally, he will only be more attentive. So Qin Pingan asked Zhao Shuxia to move from Qilong Lane to Luopao Mountain. In the end, the place where the boxing will be taught will be placed on the 2nd floor of the bamboo building. Ever since he drank the apprentice tea and officially accepted Zhao Shuxia as his heir, Qin Pingan has been thinking seriously about how to teach boxing. Wanting to make up a boxing score by yourself is just one part of it. What kind of boxing is taught? It is to continue to teach Shanshan boxing as well as some school dragons who learn to grow Qiazujia, or Zhu Lian's boxing pole, Huang Ting's white ape back swordsmanship, which evolved from the 6 paintings of Yunkatang in Pushan. The new frame of Xian Rentu, coupled with the boxing manual donated by Kong Ho, helps Zhao Shuxia to walk from low to high, gather the strengths of hundreds of schools and integrate well. Lu Jing continued to work on his physique. Or should he directly teach Zhao Shuxia the gods and drums, Qin Pingan's own boxing, swordsmanship, etc.? What's more, how to teach specifically Qin Pingan is a pressure, how much pressure? Or don't press the boundary, just like feeding the knife sharpener Lu Zong on the ferry boat with the deer title? Is it to choose the tops of vassal mountains such as Huanghu Mountain and Huimeng Mountain, and learn from the Yunzhan Mountain of Qingping Sword Sect, starting with Zhao Shuxia, which is specially used to cultivate pure martial arts, and then form a rule for martial arts to learn boxing? Or choose to be on the 2nd floor of the bamboo building? If the location is finally chosen at Bamboo Tower, is it to inherit some unwritten tradition and teach boxing in the way of the predecessor Cui Cheng, or Qin Pingan to try it according to his own method? If both are compatible, then the proportion of each is the most suitable for Zhao Shuxia. These are all very real issues before Qin Pingan. As a master, he must know what he needs to know first. Officially teaching boxing to his disciples, Qin Pingan has been reconsidering these days, overturning one idea after another, but just by taking this opportunity, Qin Pingan also made a review of his martial arts career. This morning the genius was shining brightly. Qin Pingan was sitting alone at the stone table by the cliff. Not long after, Nuanshu came here with the millet grains. Wooden hangers? Qin Pingan was entertained, stood up and asked with a smile, "What are you doing?" Zhoumi laughed and said, "Sister Nuanshu said this time when I go home, the good man will stay in the mountains for a long time. As soon as we got together last night, we decided to take care of it." Qin Pingan joked, "Is such a hanger brought here? It looks like the craftsmanship of an old cook. Wouldn't you be the one who urged him to rush to work overnight?" Millet quickly pursed her lips. Nuanshu nodded and smiled, "I asked Mr. Zhu to help." Millet Grains immediately said, Together. In fact, it was her bad idea last night. Sister Nuanshu wanted to talk about it in the morning, but she couldn't stand her scolding, so she went to knock on the door in the middle of the night. Alas, I am still not strong enough. No wonder Pei Qian is the chief helmsman. Xuanhu explained. Mr. Zhu said that the current status of the master requires frequent hospitality. It's not that we need to watch people serve dishes, or there are some half-baked fairy masters who can climb mountains. I sincerely admire the master, and the master clearly looks like this. Handsome, first-class immortal demeanor, always wearing a green shirt and long coat, which is inevitably boring, and occasionally changing into different clothes and robes, not to mention how surprised outsiders are, it can also make us seductive and refreshing. Xiaomi and I both feel that Mr. Zhu is right. Millet nodded vigorously. Yes, the old cook can express our heart in a few words. Nuance's eyes shone brightly. After setting up the hanger, Zhou Mili squatted on the ground and looked left and right, saying that it was not bad at all. The girl in the pink skirt hurriedly opened the 2 packages and took out a whole set of clothes. Obviously, she had already made a draft, and took the initiative to ask the master for the blue gauze robe. Qin Pingan originally wanted to say that it can be pulled down. Seeing that Nuanchu and Xiaomi Mi have such an attitude, he had no choice but to hold his nose and not express his opinion. He silently took out the blue gauze robe from the object close by and handed it to Nuanchu. Nuanchu was busy, carefully selecting the neatly folded clothes from the package held by the millet grains in both hands, while smiling and saying that they must be well matched. Last night Mr. Zhu said, "Wait, the old man dressed like this." When he turned back, Zhu Lian personally made a gold crown that was not tacky. At that time, the master didn't care whether he was holding a white jade Ganoderma lucidum or a whisk, and then put on the slippery cloud shoes woven by Xiaoma. Omi Jianxian saw it. You have to be ashamed of yourself, just hate that you are not a daughter. Qin Pingan was silent. If the old cook came here to watch the fun, he could go directly to the second floor to learn from each other. In addition to the hangers, Nuanchu and Millet also brought some spare items that were very attentive. For example, I went to the bamboo building to hang a string of bells under the eaves, and brought a celadone vase with a freshly broken plum blossom inserted. Qin Pingan joked, "It is easy to change from frugality to luxury, but it is difficult to change from luxury to frugality." Nuanchu smiled and said, "Master, you don't need to worry about this. The millet grains are next to the chickens pecking at the rice." Qin Pingan laughed dumbly and sat in the bamboo corridor outside the door. He had nothing to do, so he asked Xiaoli to help bring the small bamboo basket, which was full of invitations and invitations of various colors. Most of them came from Aquarius continent and Beiju Lu continent. For example, the Emperor of Shihao Kingdom went to himself to reminisce. There are also several letters from outside the 2 continents, which are quite unexpected, including an invitation from an overseas female ship owner from Fuyazhou. On Chui Dongshan's side, the expansion rate will be very fast, because it is completely different from Luopeishan's style. Chui Dongshan admits that Qingping Sword Sect will open its doors and accept disciples, and several dynasties including De Quan Yao's have begun to connect. Now, within their respective countries, as long as there are sword cultivators, there are several counts. If you give people and then pay, I will help you cultivate them in Shindu Mountain. Not long ago, a secret letter was sent from Chaofeng of Yunzhan Mountain, saying that the Deyuan dynasty, which had been divided into 3 parts, was about to be reunited, and Yuan Li and Yuan Mi, who had established themselves as emperors, were willing to surrender themselves as vassal kings. Respect Yuan Ying as the emperor. Besides Wang Manmeng and Chen Hoer, they both admire you so much, sir, that they can't drive them away, so they have to cry and shout to join our Qingping Sword Sect. As for that martial artist, Hong Chou is not bad. Now, the small bet on I Ching failed to make money, so he simply gambled on the big one, and joined the Emperor Yuan Ying. The hero gambled his life to report the emperor. It's just in this letter that our sect master Chui started beating around the bush to ask how Zhao Wan's practice was going. Qin Pingan looked at the invitation letters. The grains of millet lie in the corridor, holding their cheeks in their hands, carefully counting the passages outside the cliff. The white clouds on the road, today's fog and heavy clouds are fat, and there is a big lump. It is the sea of clouds. Nuanchu tugged at the sleeves of the millet grains, and the millet grains immediately understood, rolled, and then a carp kicked up, jumped up and stood still. Good mountain master, I have to go on a mountain tour. Qin Pingan smiled and nodded, go ahead. Putting all the letters and invitations back into the small basket, Qin Pingan stood up, walked to the cliff again, saw the sunrise and the sea of clouds, stood up, came to Zhao Shuxia's house on the mountain, knocked on the door and was practicing walking. Zhao Shuxia still called Mr. Qin habitually, but Qin Pingan didn't care. Hearing that he was going to take himself to the second floor of the bamboo building, Zhao Shuxia looked complicated, nodded his head and followed silently. Now Zhao Shuxia's martial arts realm is the bottleneck of the four realms, and it is also a four-realm martial artist. Because Qin Pingan sent a copy of swordsmanship. So Zhao Shuxia will also study swordsmanship in addition to practicing boxing over the years. Qin Pingan said, Cui Dongshan wants to accept Xuanhuan as a direct disciple. What do you think? Xuanhuan's aptitude for Taoism, Cui Dongshan, has been coveted for a long time, and really wants to accept her as his heir. Cui Dongshan spoke highly of her, saying that even if it can't compare to a well-deserved, natural talent, like Chai Wu, my family's xuanhuan can be regarded as a veritable earth material. Any sect in Howren world is a sweet pastry worthy of careful cultivation. Qin Pingan still planned to ask Xuanhuan what she meant first. If she chose to stay with Luapa Mountain, of course she would not delay her cultivation, but the cultivation path given by Cui Dongshan would indeed make her go faster. And it's not the kind of shortcut that encourages growth, so there will be no hidden dangers. To tell the truth, it's okay to teach boxing, and to instruct others to practice. Qin Pingan really lacks confidence. In order to convince her husband to agree to this matter, Cui Dongshan swore and assured that everything was ready for Xuanhuan to form a golden pill, and she just waited for Xuanhuan to arrive at Wuxiaofeng in Yunjian Mountain. In retreat, he, the master, came to protect the retreat in person. At the same time, Cui Dongshan also hinted that his husband, the next peak master position of Wuxiaofeng, naturally would not let the fat and water flow to outsiders. Going further, it is also possible to think about it when he was promoted and transferred to the mountain owner of Jimyo Mountain. Qingping Sword Sect 3 Mountains, Xindu Mountain is the dojo for sword cultivators, and Yunjian Mountain is run by pure warriors. This is the ancestral example of the sect established by Cui Dongshan himself. It was arranged at Mount Qimiao, the main peak Jingxingfeng, the first peak owner Chao Qingqing as Cui Dongshan's junior and junior, just because he was the next suzerain, so it really doesn't make much sense whether Chao Qingming is the mountain owner of Qimiao Mountain, might as well make room for someone else. Cui Dongshan patted his chest and promised that in the future, if Xuanhuan formed a pill, if there was no second-grade weather, the gentleman would just come to Qingping Jianzong Xingshi to ask his guilt, and take me as a question. Qin Pingan doesn't even bother to talk nonsense with him. He is your direct disciple. Even if Xuanhuan doesn't have a second-grade pill, what else can I say? To say shameless, it is Cui Dongshan who is more talented as a student. The dog lifts the curtain with his mouth. Zhao Shuxia said, I guess Xuanhuan might not be willing to go to Qingping Sword Sect to practice, but she always listened to Mr. Chen. If Mr. Chen suggested her to go there, I think Xuanhuan would agree. Sect Master Cui is highly regarded and becomes a direct disciple, and I am also happy for her. Xuanhuan is now a chi practitioner in the Dragon Gate realm, and his cultivation is smooth with almost no barriers. 4 realm warriors and the current bottleneck is difficult to break. Qin Pingan said, Time flies so fast. Under the tree after the new year. You are 36 years old this year, right? I remember that the first time we met was in the city of Rouge County, Sai country. Zhao Shuxia was still a thin boy with a hatchet. Zhao Shuxia grinned and said, Mr. Qin remembers correctly, it's 30 out of 6. Qin Pingan smiled and joked, I'm not too young and I've traveled all over the world, but I haven't met the girl I like? Is it something you like but you despise you, and if you like you don't despise it? Don't you just drag it? Zhao Shuxia said with a face, I never thought about it. Qin Pingan laughed at himself, don't mention this, after all, the matter of urging marriage is disliked by dogs. If you can't be a master for a few days, you can put on the air of the most unpleasant elder. As the direct disciple of Qin Pingan, there are currently 5 people, Cui Dongshan, Pei Qian, Chao Qingqing, Zhao Shuxia and Guizhuzhou. Cui Dongshan is already the master of the next sect, and Pei Qian is even more famous as a martial artist of the world. Chao Qingqing is a first-class reading seed, the second-ranked person in the imperial examination of Dali, and now she is also a golden elixir, and has just become the leader of Jingxingfeng's first peak. Guizhuzhou came from the Great Wall of Sword Qi Jingdan Jianxiu, and he was born in the Summer Palace lineage. He was a leader among the younger generation of Jianxiu in his hometown. It seems that only Zhao Shuxia is the only one who has no name. Not only does he have no deeds worth talking about now, but in the future the gap between him and those fellow students will only get bigger and bigger. Zhao Shuxia also imagined his own future. Maybe in another 20 or 30 years, he is at most a martial artist with a golden body, maybe not at all, and his realm is only stagnant in the 6th realm for a long time. Therefore, before Luopeishan became a sect, Mr. Qin suddenly accepted him as a direct descendant and entered the genealogy of Jiaisfeng Patriarch Hall. The most surprising thing was none other than Zhao Xuxia himself. Since Mr. Qin often travels far and wide, Mr. Zhu has put a lot of effort into learning boxing. It's just that every breakthrough under Zhao Xu is far away from the strongest word that can earn martial arts. In Zhao Shuxia's house, there is a plaque in the study which was handwritten by Qin Pingan. Real fast. Probably this is Qin Pingan's greatest expectation for Zhao Xuxia. Qin Pingan led Zhao Xuxia one after the other, up the stairs of the bamboo building. Qin Pingan walked slowly and said slowly, "Under the tree, in my opinion, a person has two extremely valuable talents, the one that is visible is talent, and the one that is invisible is hard work. Xuanhuan is the former, you belonging to the latter. Of course it does not mean that Xuanhuan does not practice hard, nor does it mean that you have no talent at all. If you can become a martial artist of the four realms, it is already considered as entering the room, and the fist is in your body. It is the dream of many martial arts practitioners. Maybe outside the mountains, if you are just a person in the rivers and lakes, you can't be arrogant and have eyes higher than the top, but Luopao Mountain is special. I have to make you not belittle yourself and be too self-denial. Pei Chen is Pei Chen, Zhao Xu is Zhao Xu. Next, practice boxing first for oneself, and after asking others about the boxing score, the order here can't be wrong." Speaking of this, Qin Pingan joked, "Master is too good and sister is too strong. Sometimes it is also a burden?" Zhao Xuxia hummed. Truly an honest man. When he came to the corridor on the second floor of the bamboo building, Qin Pingan did not rush to open the door. It's just that when we work hard for something, it can be seen for a long time, but it is easy to be ignored because neither the hard-working nor the bystanders think it is a talent. I've always felt that if you don't grit your teeth and really work hard, you're not qualified to talk about talent. Look for a path and then you can get in there without distraction. In the right direction, persevere, keep your feet on the ground and suddenly look up. You can't see your back at this moment, the people walking in front of you are geniuses, losing to them is a fate. If you complain again, you can blame the gods and not blame yourself. Eat well, clothe yourself, sleep peacefully with a clear conscience. Knowing the gap between yourself and those geniuses is the reward after hard work. Don't feel useless. This will be very useful for your future martial arts and life. Because on the road of martial arts, Chao Xi and I are roughly like this. Zhao Xuxia hesitated for a while, but decided to tell the truth. Master, not everyone can chase after Chao Xi and see Chao Sis back all the time. Qin Pingan nodded with a smile, very pleased, very good. First the student Chao Qingqing and then the apprentice Zhao Xuxia. Who would dare to say that the atmosphere of my Luapa mountain is not right? Qin Pingan said, under the tree, have you ever thought that there might be someone like Chao Xi on our life path? Zhao Xuxia nodded and said solemnly, understood. Qin Pingan asked, under the tree, what do you think is Pei Qian's greatest advantage as a senior sister, or what do you want to learn from her the most? Zhao Xuxia said without hesitation, senior sister can endure the hardships and has her own ideas. In these 2 points, senior sister is very similar to master. For example, Pei Qian learned boxing here for a period of time, and she used to jump off the cliff every day. Ask Boxing Earth. This kind of thing, Zhao Xuxia admits that even if he practices boxing for another 100 years, he can't think of it. Therefore, Zhao Xuxia never felt that senior sister Pei could have today's martial arts achievements just because of her talent in boxing. Qin Pingan stood in the corridor, leaning against the railing, looking into the distance and said with a smile, I'll tell you something from my heart that I've never said to outsiders. Actually, I've always had a wish. Zhao Xuxia looked serious and waited for the next paragraph. Qin Pingan suddenly changed his mind and said with a smile, I'll say this later, I have to say it behind closed doors. A mighty world, the Deduan dynasty in the Middle Earth, the female martial god Pei Cup, his disciples are Chao Xi, and 3 direct descendants including Ma Zuanxian. In the world of Qingming Lin Jiangxian, who is respected as Master Lin, besides being the first person in martial arts in the world, he heard that he is also very skilled in teaching boxing. On Luopao Mountain, Qin Pingan and Pei Qian also have both master and apprenticeships. But Luopao Mountain still has Zhu Lian. There is Jing Dafeng who is now in the colorful world. There is still kind of autumn Wei Xian Lu Baixiang. The younger generation also includes Cin Yuanji, Yuan Bao, Yuan Lai and Zhou Junqian. As for the wild world, because the big monks are too arrogant, pure warriors have never been in a good mood. Even if they are able to reach the limit, they will either become vassals or be killed by monks. There are almost no masters who can be called true in the wild world. Stand on your own, stand tall. Therefore, several worlds have quietly formed the prototype of the fist divided into 3 veins pattern. Zhao Xuxia was still upright in the end, and subconsciously changed his name and said, Mr. Chen, regarding the future achievements of martial arts, Mr. Zhu told me some predictions in the early years. He said that in my life, if I hadn't met Mr. Chen, I would be extremely. It is possible that there is a 3-level difference with senior sister Pei, and I think this should be the truth. It turns out that Zhu Lian did have a heart-to-heart relationship with Zhao Xuxia. If you have never met a mountain master, you may have been practicing martial arts all your life and then working hard, luckily, and you were not beaten to death on the rivers and lakes. To become the top expert of a small country, and to call the wind and call the rain in a river and lake the size of a pond, is the best result. When you enter Luopao Mountain to learn boxing, it is tantamount to opening the sky and the earth. If one day you are fortunate enough to become the direct disciple of our mountain master, then you will have the hope of becoming one of the 9 realms in this life. Look up at the sky. Qin Pingan smiled and said, the old cook is a far-flung person. He knows a lot and can't judge people. A rickety old man with his hands behind his back was walking on the path and was about to turn into the bamboo building. He coughed a few times, but he had to turn back the same way, not going to make fun of himself. Zhao Xuxia heard the coughing sound and was immediately embarrassed. He had great respect for Zhu Lian. Qin Pingan continued, on the Zhulu side, first help you lay a solid foundation, and then I will go to Yunzhou side in a place called Yenzhou Fusuian County, to be a school teacher. You will follow him when the time comes. I will go there together and I will settle down there and I will guide you in your practice at any time. As the Taika River in the upper reaches of Baihu River, the shrine is called Jixiang Temple, similar to the family temple of Xiang Mansion. Hundreds of miles of water in the Taikuan River have now been allocated to the Baihu River Waterhouse, the Dali Imperial Court Rights, the Piyun Mountain Beiwe Mountain Monarch House, and the Huang Tingwe Imperial Court, all of which have been recorded separately. Because of the merger of Taikuan River, the water goddess of Baihu River in Kana, Xuanhuan was able to take advantage of the situation to upgrade to the level of god, which is already equal to the rank of the water of Hanxi River. And Gaojiu, who was transferred from the Taika River, was also promoted to 1 rank, because there was a big river in Yunzhou, which allowed Gaojiu to build a temple and reshape the golden statues. The key is wuxia as the source. Hides the ruins of the ancient Shulong Palace that was just discovered by the Dali court not long ago. The creek is similar to the Longxi River, and there is a stone arch bridge with a similar regulation, named Wanyan Bridge. Of course, no ancient swords were hung. It is said that in Suian County, when there is no rain for a long time, there is a custom of the old man going up the mountain and shouting for the rain. Chen Pingan took out the key to open the bamboo door on the 2nd floor, turned and sat on the ground, taking off his cloth shoes. Zhao Xuxia sat aside and did the same. Chen Pingan, who was sitting barefoot at the door, slowly rolled up his sleeves and said, Senior Chui, who was the first to teach boxing here, was the pinnacle of the 1st floor, and he even stepped into the 11th realm with 1 foot. Your senior sister, I don't dare to say when you will become a god, but I believe it won't be too long to become a god. As for myself, it's not easy to want to be a god, but it's not an extravagant hope. Chen Pingan raised his hand and stretched out 4 fingers. The old saying always says that there are only 3 things, not only that some things should not happen 4 times in a row, but also that things can happen again and again, and it is difficult to get 4. I don't have high expectations. It must be a lie. You can foolishly believe it, but I can't say it myself. I certainly hope that Zhao Xuxia, who can learn boxing here, will one day be able to follow Cui Qing, Chen Pingan and Pei Qian. The 4th stop warrior, so the Bamboo Tower warriors are all stop. Chen Pingan turned to look at Zhao Xuxia and smiled, so the only problem now is you. Zhao Xu straightened his back, his body tense, but his mind was already blank. Chen Pingan asked with a smile, don't say you've done it, don't you dare to think about it? Zhao Xuxia nodded with a face. Zhao Xuxia, you have to dare to think. Chen Pingan said, this is the first punch you will learn from Chen Pingan from today, before you officially enter the house. Chen Pingan stood up and said, things that you can't even think about can't be achieved. In this world you should say I can't to yourself. Taoism emphasizes meditation, sitting and forgetting. Xianxia is alone all the time. Buddhists say that when you sit in meditation facing the wall, you have to sit on the futon and break the wall. Even if the way forward is blocked, you will clear the way with fists. Zhao Xuxia, you are different from me. You are just a pure martial artist, and I am Wufu is also a cultivator on the mountain. Wufu's lifespan is limited after all. I hope that you will be old and can't deliver a punch. Even if you haven't reached the end, you must have a clear conscience. Come on, ask yourself, dare to say, I am Zhao Xuxia. In this life I have practiced martial arts and boxing, and I have never been worthy of the word pure. Come in. Qin Pingan turned around and strode into the house and said solemnly, "Close the door again." Zhao Shuxiao followed Qin Pingan into the house, then turned around and closed the bamboo door. If it wasn't for the reminder from Zhu Lian and Zhou Mili yesterday, perhaps Zhao Shuxiao would not have realized the true meaning of the word closed door when Master said it at this moment. From this moment on, Zhao Shuxiao, the skinny boy with a hatchet in the past, is the closed disciple of Master Qin Pingan on the road of martial arts. Qin Pingan stood in a position in the house. Zhao Shuxiao stood opposite Qin Pingan, which was almost where Qin Pingan and Pei Qian stood. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Close the door and I can say that. I want to make the world, not just the vast world, the world's warriors see this bamboo tower as if they saw the Patriarch's Hall." Sword of Coming Chapter 987. Practicing martial arts and cultivating Taoism. In fact, the boundaries between the two are not as clear as we imagined. I even have a guess that can't be verified for the time being. Every cultivator on the mountain is a natural warrior with a golden body. To learn boxing you must first understand yourself. Zhao Shuxiao, let's start with the simplest breathing. It's like looking down at the mountains and rivers from a cactus. Qin Pingan did not teach Zhao Shuxiao the boxing tricks, nor did he rush to feed Zhao Shuxiao, but left 7 maps of human acupuncture points in the bamboo building, corresponding to Qin Ping's own martial arts from 3 to 9. The different scenes of the human body and the small world, the flesh and bones are deliberately erased from the portrait, and only the acupuncture points and meridians are left, which are at the same height as people. As for the acupuncture and moxibustion wooden figurines in the market pharmacy, it is naturally even more incomparable. The 7 pictures with different acupoints are dotted with light and flickering, and the colors are different, reflecting the whole bamboo house. The bright star map in Taishu. With every breath of Qin Pingan, in the 7 portraits, the 7 stars in the heaven and earth, like the Milky Way upside down, the white rainbow in the sky, the stars pulling and rotating each other, and many other visions grow. Each portrait is like a colorful astrological formation. The lower the realm of Qin Pingan, the faster the breathing and the shorter the interval, so the changes in the star map are greater, as if the whole world is expanding and shrinking following a person's every breath. The cycle seems to be endless. The higher the realm, the more stable the star map world, but once you take a closer look, you will find that it is actually the opposite. After Qin Pingan put his hands together, he slowly said, "These body acupuncture points are clearly recorded in the medical books of the world and the Taoist books of various schools, and are regarded as the Qi palaces. Apart from those with different names and the same acupuncture points, I will collect and summarize them. After so many years, I think the error will not be too big. In fact, there are only about 700. If you add various secret traditions of various sects and find the secret realm by accident, I will pass the Summer Palace secret files and Confucian Temple. The Gongdalin records have added nearly 100 acupuncture points that seem to be forgotten in the ruins. Some of them are indeed recognized as tasteless Qi houses. After repeated verification, they were gradually abandoned by Qi practitioners, but many acupuncture points, Qi practitioners. I wanted to open a mansion, but the threshold was too high, so I was neglected and lost. In addition, someone once borrowed a 14-level Taoist method for me temporarily, and there were a lot more. In the 7th picture, there are a total of more than 150 acupuncture points. Therefore, a martial artist is pure infuriating, and the walking path is longer so it can affect more people's natural energy, blending into fist intent, and punching naturally becomes heavier. Back then in Mud Bottle Lane, Qin Pingan had just obtained the Shaking Mountain Fist Manual. Song Jisin and his maid Jigui left Liju Cave and lost a bunch of keys to him. In the end, Qin Pingan was in the kitchen next door. It was found that a split wooden figure was left, engraved with acupuncture points and meridians. For Qin Pingan at the beginning of learning boxing, the boxing manual was a way to hang his life, so this was put together again by Qin Pingan. The wooden man is a hatchet, a mountain axe. In fact, at that time, Qin Pingan knew that Jigui did it on purpose, because she knew very well that if it was a complete wooden figurine, Qin Pingan would definitely not pick it up and walk away, and maybe he wouldn't take a second look. With Qin Ping's fascination with money and thrift, he would definitely be willing to move back to his ancestral house next door, cooperate with a tattered boxing manual that he regarded as a standard, and study the knowledge carefully. This incident, the former servant girl Jigui of the Clay Bottle Alley, and the later Donghai Sea King Zhenlong Wangzhu, met Qin Pingan several times. She never mentioned a sentence or a sentence. She had long forgotten. But Qin Pingan always kept it in his heart. Qin Pingan asked, "How much do you remember?" Xuanhuan closed his eyes and opened them again and said, I can roughly remember the locations of more than 700 acupuncture points. Chen Pingan nodded. Suddenly a probing arm lightning shot, palm lightly against Xiaoxia's neck, and with a casual shake, Xuanhuan slid out of a circle in the bamboo house, and waited until Xuanhuan just returned to the original position. I was horrified to find that on this circle, there were dozens of astrological maps of Xuanhuan. Chen Pingan glanced casually and looked at the copies of the human world and qi machine under Xuanhuan. Chen Pingan nodded for no reason and said with a smile, this is the right way to teach boxing and I have more confidence. Teaching an apprentice like Xuanhuan will give you a sense of accomplishment. Chen Pingan put his fingers together, pointed at one of the constellations, and pointed at a very fast speed. In an instant, 300 or 400 acupoint names were marked, all of which were the paths that Zhao Shu's next mouth of Wufu Jinchi Fire Dragon Walks Water passed by. The mansion is like accurately drawing a map of the map, and then let Zhao Shusha hold his breath and try to walk in 6 steps. After that, Qin Pingan copied another map, waved his sleeve, and the 2-star maps overlapped in unity. Qin Pingan said, you can take a closer look at the difference between the two. First observe a stick of incense sticks and then take a 6-step walk. If there is no obvious improvement, I can let the old cook prepare the herbs and buckets. After a stick of incense, Zhao Shu lay on the ground and passed out. Qin Pingan shouted, Julien, start work. The rickety old man immediately shouted loudly, come here, it's ready. Julien came to the 2nd floor of the bamboo building, looked at Zhao Shuxia, who was neither covered in blood nor twitching, and sighed, young master is still a kind-hearted man. Qin Pingan carried Zhao Shuxia down the 2nd floor, went to the house of the closed disciple and explained, the heartstrings are always tense under the tree, today is not suitable for teaching more boxing, take your time. You say I should blame who? Who in the end let Zhao Shuxia know the meaning of the word close the door early. Zhu Lian immediately exposed himself, I must blame me for revealing the secret ahead of time. Qin Pingan was speechless for a while. Zhu Lian laughed softly, young master, forget it today, tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, there is no time when you are not half dead when you really practice boxing. It stands to reason that if it was replaced by Cui Qing, Zhao Shuxia would not be able to die for 7 or 8 times, fainted and then woke up, and then fainted and died. Zhao Shuxia would definitely not be able to get out of the bamboo house. However, in Zhu Lian's view, if Zhao Shuxia, as a close disciple of Qin Pingan, could really follow Cui Qing, who was 2 generations apart, to learn boxing, it would not necessarily be such a bleak situation. Qin Pingan nodded, for a while I really can't be ruthless, so I'm also adjusting my mentality. Zhu Lian sighed softly. When the young master learned boxing, only Nuan Shu and Qin Lingju knew the specific situation, but after Pei Qian learned boxing, Zhu Lian watched it from the beginning to the end, not talking about the 2nd floor. How much suffering has been suffered? I only said that Xiao Haitan often lowered her head to eat, and when she raised her head again, her eyes and ears were oozing blood. What to look at a ghost eat. It is estimated that if the young master saw these scenes with his own eyes, he would be heartbroken, not to mention distressed, and he would definitely go to Zhulu to fight with Cui Qing. Qin Pingan suddenly asked, when are you going to ask me about boxing? Give me a time and place? Zhu Lian rubbed his hands together and smiled, if you don't take the initiative to ask, I won't be ashamed to mention it. Qin Pingan smiled and said, why are you being polite to me? I won't be polite to you when you ask about Quan. The implication is that Qin Pingan will never be overwhelmed. After all, Zhu Lian is a mountaintop that is only 1 layer of window paper away from the end. Note 1, Zhu Lian thought for a while, then choose this winter, choose a heavy snow season, and the location will be the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom in Lotus Root Blessed Land? Qin Pingan nodded and said, yes. Coincidentally, Luopeishan received a letter from Feijian, and the Fanma dragon boat and Fengyuan ferry would arrive at Nujiadu within a day, but it took about an hour. In addition to the millet grains, Qin Pingan also called Hongxia and Yunzi, and Xuanhuan who rode on Longxiang, all of them will follow Fengyuan ferry to Beiju Luzhou, and they will cross the continent to Pimazong on the Beach of Bones first. Then along the southeast coastal route, stop at Chunlapu, and then go along Jidu to the ferry under the Yunshao Palace of the Chongshin Department in the middle, and go south to Yunshangcheng. Although it is a long trip by ferry, it can be considered a visit. It's half the size of Beiju Luzhou, just like it doesn't matter at the moment. Yunzi and the girl Xuanhuan are quite happy. As for the latter, there is more joy. Of course there will be a reunion soon, seeing the long-lost man again. The eldest brother who reunited and recognized his relatives is now the head of the clan. She, who is a younger sister, wakes up laughing when she sleeps recently. There was still some time before the dragon boat ferry docked. Qin Pingan and his party went to visit their store. Millet and the female cultivators were very familiar with each other, and they greeted each other warmly. Baozhai has left a lot of buildings on the Niujiao mountainside, which cost a lot of jade and wood from the fairy family. If it works well, the result is like digging a well and running halfway. It is no wonder that the old patriarch Xiangxi deliberately took him on a trip to Shindu Mountain and drank tea at King Shandu. Self-cultivation and self-cultivation Wuxiao's Taoism couldn't be relieved. Today, only less than 1/3 of the shops are open for business. In addition to the various mountain grasses cultivated in the spring dew garden, there are also precious orchids similar to the orchid house. The old cook specially compiled an orchid spectrum for this purpose. Heard that books sell better than orchids. In addition, there are all kinds of antique calligraphy and paintings, miscellaneous utensils, and the prices are not low, but the shop can guarantee that they are all genuine, and there are a lot of treasures that Ma Di carefully collected, all of which are stored here for sale. The deducted financial fan has smashed all the savings into it, and there have been many leaks and holes. Overall, he still made a lot of money. Just like Qin Pingan, who had seen Liuxia, Guanqing, and Bai Ke, the female cultivators of Zhuchai Island, almost all of Lu Chongren's direct disciples had worked part-time here to help the shop buy things, and they were all unpaid. Xuanhuan and Tianjiu will often come here to help. Nailin Yuyu, a small abacus, has inherited the fine tradition of the family. At a young age, she wanted to exclusively manage the business of a building, which was vacant anyway. There are so many shops, and before opening she will sign a contract with Luopa Mountain to guarantee the bottom line. Every time he passed this new Jiadu, Qin Pingan couldn't help but think of the old man named Hong Yanghua at the Xinjia Ferry in Dilong Mountain. The last time I went to King Fanfang, Qin Pingan used 5 small summer money to buy a copy of the copybook of Shi Zai Tai, which is very close to the original appearance. The opening of the copybook has 5 characters. Shi Zai's sword is sparse. For children, what it means to grow up is to be able to eat whatever they want regardless of their parents. For adults, what it means to be rich is that you can buy whatever you want regardless of the price. Going to Niujiao Ferry, Qin Pingan glanced at the eye-catching wooden sign standing on the side of the road and nodded. Zhou Junqian was still very diligent and did not procrastinate at all. Now there are 2 cases up and down, and the family owns 3 ferries. The earliest dragon boat turned the ink, then the Fengyuan ferry, and later Lu Jubao and Yu Panshui, who visited Qingping Jianzong, jointly sent a ferry called Tongyin. The rank is comparable to that of a dragon boat. Although it is not a giant ferry that can cross continents, the route spans half a continent without any problem, and its cargo capacity is even better than that of a dragon boat as an ornamental ship. If he wasn't worried about the suspicion of retribution, Qin Pingan would have wanted to buy the Thunder Car ferry with Dequan Yao Shi, or he would settle for the next best thing and book a 4th ship with the Dequan court. Why don't you want to do business to Fuyazu? This has an innate advantage for Luopao Mountain. This route will pass through Luhua Island, Yilongzong, and then go to Fuyao Island. Not to mention Fuyao Island, Qin Pingan has something else to keep an eye on. In addition, Lu Shun, the owner of the Nishang, sent an invitation letter, saying that the master of her sect had just successfully exited the customs and entered the Jade Realm. I wanted to ask if there were any young hidden officials. Time to attend the celebration. Of course, this kind of invitation is just a passing scene. Lu Shun is satisfied to get a letter of refusal, because she knows very well that Chen Yingguan would never go across the sea to her sect to watch the ceremony. Lu Shun's sect is located on an island in the southwest sea of Howran World. The wild monsters invaded and evacuated during the war. Later, they returned to their hometown and replaced a neighboring island to rebuild the Patriarch's Hall. Back then in the Chunbazhai Conference Hall, the female boat owner Lu Shun was a young Jin Dan with very low qualifications. Among the many boat owners and stewards, she was the lowest in realm, so the seat was placed near Xiao Yunyan at the door, but Lu Shun was the one with the lowest level. There is a junior sister who is extremely young, but is a veritable genius of Taoism, a golden elixir and earth immortal in her 20s, so the new hidden officer would threaten her, willing to spend 200 grain rain money, or equivalent Danfang materials, to change her junior sister and take over the ferry Nishang. Of course, that soared in the end. Zhang's discussion did not lead to any fatalities. Lu Shun and Lu Yu also got an errand at the time, and they became the bookkeepers in the lobby. The ink-turning dragon boat slowly landed on the shore, and a boy in green clothes swaggered off the deck. His 2 sleeves flew up, and behind him was a girl with a green bamboo stick. It was Chen Lingjun and Guizhuzhou who had attended the opening ceremony of the Huangliang sect and went to the capital of Mingliang Kingdom again. After the two groups met, Qin Pingan smiled and said, "I'm finally back." Guizhuzhou smiled brightly and asked, "Elder sister didn't go home with master?" Qin Pingan explained, "She wants to help your little brother and Tong Yezhou has to dig a brand new ditch. Some people are busy. Pei Qian won't go back to Luopao Mountain for a while. If you want her, feel free to do so anytime. You can go to Tongye Continent." Chen Lingjun held back for a long time, but he still couldn't hold back and asked, "Master, they all told Hongxia and Yunzi to run errands in the past. Did the big white goose invite me to Qingping Jianzong's side to participate in the grand event and paint the future? The imperial decree and the secret decree, the former is for outsiders to see, and the latter is more valuable. Chen Lingjun has already thought about the drama of 3 invitations and 3 rejections. Isn't there such a particular emphasis in officialdom? Whether I answer or not is my business, but it would be too much to say that Cui Dongshan did not invite him." Qin Pingan said, "I didn't mention you. Dare to dig into Chen Lingjun's side? Cui Dongshan really has no such courage." But where did Chen Lingjun know about the inside story involving the love and murder of his husband and students? Chen Lingjun asked tentatively, "The big white goose knows that I want to serve as the royal enshrinement of the Mengliang kingdom, and thinks that I will not be invited? I am afraid that I will have a heavy business and I can't escape, right? It must be so." Chen Pingan said, "I didn't talk to Cui Dongshan about this, I just said that you and Zhujiu were watching the ceremony at the Huangliang school." Chen Lingjun was sluggish and speechless for a long time. How can I be worse than Hongxia and Yunzi who are in the same realm? Back then that Yunzi was still a helper behind his own ass. The boy in Tsingyi immediately thumped his chest and stood up. What a big white goose! When he becomes the suzerain, his eyes are higher than the top, and he looks down on the old friend who shares weal and woe, and I am also angry. Qin Pingan said angrily, "It's okay to go if you really want to. You'll say hello to Cui Dongshan. You'll take the Fengyuan ferry with Hongxia and Yunzi later." Qin Lingjun said angrily, "Go for a hammer, the big white goose has no sincerity. Next time I go back to Luapa Mountain I have to talk to him well, and he is not like a brother like him. I don't cowardly see anyone, but if I see the opportunity is not good, I cowardice faster than anyone else, and I can always convince myself that I can't hide my ears. What is the size? The man can bend and stretch, and the face that is thrown on the ground is not a face." Guizhuzhou smiled and said, "Master, on our way to the capital of Mengliang Kingdom, we met a middle-aged man of Taoism who traveled all over the world, with a sword on his back and a wine jug hanging on his back. The Taoist name is Chunyang and the surname is Lu Mingyan." Chen Lingjun raised his head over there and picked his nose. "A Taoist name and name that I have never heard of, my uncle, is not very arrogant. If it is said that Bai Xian is in the pavilion on the side of the road, he has worked hard to compile a heroic book that insists on asking Pei Qian for a fair copy of the rivers and lakes. Then Chen Lingjun has not been idle all these years. He inquired about news everywhere. Through Shanshui Dibao, Jinghua Shuiyu and various gossip, he worked hard to collect information, and all the cultivators in the Ascension and Immortal realms in the vast world were wiped out. In the end, collected into a thin booklet, Chen Lingjun named it Passers-by. It is used to warn myself that when I see these old gods in the future, let's be a passerby who passes by them, pass by, don't talk and don't climb high." Chen Pingan nodded with a smile. "It's a senior I just met in Tongye Continent before. It's from our Aquarius continent. The dojo where this real person Jedan is located is on the border of Mengliang Kingdom, so only then will we revisit the old place. Not long ago, Senior Lu came to our Luopao Mountain as a guest. If you came earlier maybe you could save the seniors for a meal and a drink?" Chen Lingjun stopped immediately, shook his hand, rubbed his clothes, winked at Guizhuzhou, implying that she should stop talking. It was nothing interesting, it was just a chance encounter, drank a little wine and chatted a few words. Some are not. There is no need to show this kind of wine situation to the master. Some deeds are not worth mentioning, just let it go with the wind. Guizhuzhou smiled and said, "I drank it a long time ago." Chen Lingjun and Chunyang Jinren can chat very well. On the ferry boat he took the other party and drank a drink. The fly in the ointment is that the other party can't draw punches. Until now Chen Lingjun is still muttering. I don't know if Brother Lu would not or would not. At that time, after drinking some wine, Chen Lingjun felt that the atmosphere was good, and asked if the other party was a great monk of the 14th realm. Immediately asked if it was the Ascension realm, the Taoist priest looked rather helpless. Before he could speak, Qin Lingjun asked if he was an immortal. The Taoist priest shook his head again and Qin Lingjun would not ask. The real person didn't answer. Qin Pingan turned to look at Qin Lingjun with a playful smile. A good doesn't wait for him to speak, can always bypass key issues. Is this a talent? Qin Lingjun raised a palm high with a sullen face and said solemnly, Master, don't say it, I understand it. Remember, I promise not to be an example. I'm kicking the iron plate again. This kind of thing is familiar and it's good to get used to it. Isn't it an example? Qin Pingan smiled and touched the dog's head of the boy in Tsing-yi. Master Lingjun, do you regret it? Otherwise, the seniority on the mountain will rise again. After all, I have to call Chunyang Jinren as senior. The boy in Tsing-yi shrank his neck and laughed dryly. He hurriedly grabbed the master's hand with both hands, shook his arms for the master and stretched his muscles and bones. While complaining, Guizhuzhou explained to the master the reason for the drink with his heart. It turned out that Qin Lingjun felt that the Taoist priest looked at her with incorrect eyes, sneaking and seemed to have ulterior motives. You are still very polite and you have a lot of good things to say about you, master. In addition, when the Taoist Chunyang said goodbye to her and Qin Lingjun, he reminded her with his heartfelt words, reminding Guizhuzhi's brand new flying sword of life, don't show it to others easily. Qin Pingan was pleasantly surprised and said, is there a second flying sword of destiny? Guizhuzhou grinned, in the colorful world, a certain outing was purely a mistake and it happened out of nowhere. Qin Pingan smiled and said, prevent arrogance and impatience and make persistent efforts. Guizhuzhou shook his head, that won't work. If you don't put your tail up in the sky, you will be sorry for your master. Don't talk to Qin Lingjun. It's not about who learns from whom and we make progress together. Master, is the strength in your hands okay? Qin Lingjun couldn't listen to the voices of the master and the apprentice, but felt aggrieved and continued to hold the master's hand, so he had to walk sideways like a crab and whispered, I'm not used to sailing carefully for 10,000 years. I have traveled a lot of rivers and lakes, and I am good at seeing all directions and listening to all directions. I found that Senior Chunyang was on the ferry before, and looked at Guizhuzhou twice. A sanctimonious guy, when he encounters a wicked person he wants to help find out. Guizhuzhou, it is very hurtful for you to file a slander on the master's side. Master, you are so indiscriminate I feel strange in my heart. Uncomfortable. Qin Pingan laughed. Ruanqiong Weibo Chuiqing Luqin Chuiyu Qinqinglu Bixiao Cave Master Taoist Ancestor Most Holy Teacher Zheng Juzhong. In this series of lists, randomly picking 3 of them to provocate, and picking them at random, is probably a huge problem that makes people collapse. Let a great cultivator of the Ascension realm choose with his eyes closed, and his mind will also be unstable. Hit your luck? Even if the luck is the best, Ruanqiong, the military saint, and Weibo, the king of Beiwe Mountain, have to be selected. What should I do? Not to mention that Qin Lingjun is now the cultivation base of nascent soul realm. It is no wonder that the biggest ambition for so many years is to not be killed by a punch. In the early years I just followed Qin Pingan to the town, right at the blacksmith shop, and scolded Ruanqiong in front of him for not being shy, and he dared to rob me of my master even when he was a lot of age and beat you half to death. Later, I patted a young Taoist priest on the shoulder more than once. The Tsing-yi kid went back after the incident and came to a conclusion, how did I know that the other party was from the 14 realms and I couldn't blame me? On Wei Ba's side, when my master is absent, it is Wei Shanjun. When my master is there, Brother Wei, I once had a closed door at Pian Mountain in the early years. Once, he spat fiercely on the ground, twisted his toes, then squatted down and asked Brother Wei, what's the matter with you, why you can't get up from lying on the ground? When I met the national teacher Chui Yu, I didn't recognize the identity of the other party. The boy in Tsing-yi once said cruelly, if you want to see my master, you have to kill me first and then step over me. The new friends I met in Beiju Luzhou by Busy and Chinzhuoyo are actually the same person. As a result, I had a solid meal with that white Busy. When the two sides said goodbye, I felt that the good buddies were drinking too much and talking shit. In other words, a Yujiang water snake who was the golden core at the time, jumped up and slapped the dragon slayer on the head. A young Taoist boy rode a bull into the town from the east, and Qin Lingjun just caught a glimpse, so he pressed the cloud head, patted the bull's horn and said, my mountain is full of grass. As soon as I hear it, I will understand. In the end, the boy in Tsing-yi kindly suggested, Daozu, it's better to change his name. I heard that the scholar dressed in white, who claimed to be a friend's apprentice, recognized him as a nephew. Well, this cheap nephew of a lower generation is by Diqing Zheng Juzhong. Qin Lingzhen's resume in all corners of the world is still alive and kicking. In Zhu Lian's words, he has never seen such a big fate. How many good things Qin Lingjun has done in his last life, how much virtue he has accumulated in this life to be able to be so blessed. Zhu Lian rarely had something he couldn't understand. On Qin Lingzhen's side, after thinking about it, it was true that auspicious people had their own celestial signs, and it was really only possible to explain them in this way, otherwise there would be no solution. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Actually, Cui Dongshan invited you to Qingping Sword Sect, but I refused. When I boarded the ship, Cui Dongshan still didn't give up and wanted to haggle the price, hoping to change his mind and let you go. Dushan give me a scolding." Qin Lingjun let out a sigh, put his hands on his hips and laughed aloud. Let's just say it's impossible for the big white goose to forget Uncle Qin. Of course Guizhuzhou knew the truth. If the master lied, one would believe it. So even though the story is false, happiness is true and fools are blessed. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Bamboo wine, I made a bamboo box for you. Try it back and see if it fits on your back." Guizhuzhou's eyes lit up and he said excitedly, "Okay, very good, very good. The little bamboo box that I have been toiling around with finally has a mansion to settle in." Judging from her posture, it seemed that she did not intend to return the small bamboo box to senior sister Pei for the time being. Qin Lingjun glanced at Guizhuzhou. Alas, he didn't grow up, he was a fool. Qin Pingan turned his head and said with a smile, "Hongxia Yunzi talked to you about something, chat while walking. Under the water, dressed in yellow, standing slim and slim, living in the mountains for many years, he has the demeanor of being a secluded and independent person." Both her and Yunzi's Taoist names were taken by Cui Dongshan with help. In Qin Pingan's opinion, only Hongxia's appearance and temperament are actually not much worse than Huang Yiyun. Qin Pingan is not fake, but he is not a fool who can't see how bad a woman is at all. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "This trip to Tonggishao will not be able to return to Luapa Mountain in 3 or 2 years. I estimate that it will be as short as 7 or 8 years, and it may be as long as 10 years or even 20 years, but don't worry. You will definitely not be busy in vain." For example, on the Hongxia side, Qingping Sword Sect will help you to exchange credit for the place in the future. Even if the credit is not enough, Cui Dongshan can also help to make up for it. As for Yunzi, Cui Dongshan will help you in the future. There are also arrangements in Dongshan. Hongxia said softly, "Shanju, I actually saved some belongings myself." She was in Xuanhu Mountain, and she had been cultivating spirituality for a long time, and she could almost become one of the 5 biggest opportunities on the platform of Lizhu Cave in the past, so it was obvious how Hongxia's cultivating qualifications were. According to Cui Dongshan, as long as Hongxia is willing to practice honestly and not to cause trouble, it is not difficult to find a fairyland. Stale Pinyin said with a smile, "As soon as Dadu goes to the water, whether it is Chidu in Aquarius continent or the new Dadu in Tongye continent, it cannot be done with money alone. Besides, this is an official business and there is no need to let it be done. The truth is that you pay for your own money, not to mention that when you enter the upper 5 realms in the future, if you want to start a sect, you need to spend money. There are many places, and there are only places you can't think of. When you don't have enough money, save more, always it's a good thing. Spirits and monsters walk through water and turn rivers into flood dragons, especially if they want to succeed in crossing the river. The pass has never been dangerous not only in the process of crossing the water, but also outside of Dadu. For example, the Jidu in Luzhou and Beiju has a long history and has 3 Shuijing, but after the battle of slaying the dragon before Qin Lingjun successfully transformed the Jiaolong into the nascent soul realm, there is no example of the success of the Shuai in the history of the continent. The root cause lies along the coast of Dadu. There is no dynasty or Shinfu Mountain, together with the Yunshao Palace of Diyuan Chongshan Department, Duckweed Sword Lake and Shuilongzong. Because it is difficult not to be deliberately made difficult by other forces, the entire water transport of Dadu is equivalent to being cut into sections. The most important thing is that the aquarium walks the river, especially the Jiaoqiao, which will take away a considerable part of the water transport. Use it for your own use and then return the Dadu water transport to the sea. What's more, no matter what one's background is, it is natural to walk in clouds and rain, and it is easy to make waves, flood the sky and cause floods. If the dynasties and countries along the way are unable to stop them, they do not care, then the flood disaster on both sides of the strait is a natural disaster. But if there is a layout, the Qi cultivator responsible for cleaning up the mess will spend a lot of his own spiritual Qi, and the spiritual Qi of heaven and earth that the cultivator saves, in the final analysis, is not the money of the gods? What's more, this loss is not only a huge sum of real money, but also involves guizhua and mountains and rivers. In fact, the Dadu of Hauranjiuzhou is in the same situation, which makes it extremely difficult for the aquarium, especially the water dragon, to improve their realm by walking through water, but now there is an exception, that is, this Chidu in Aquarius continent has been destroyed by Dadu. The Li dynasty is in complete control. Therefore, it is said that the descendants of dragons and Narcissus are all lining up in one continent, trying to get in touch with each other, waiting for the invaluable customs clearance letter, issued by the Ministry of Rights of Dali. On the side of Paidu, 9 dojos and water houses have been established, which can be used for the retreat of Jindan Earth Immortals who practice the water method. There is hope that 9 new nascent soul realm will appear. Therefore, on Tongya continent, now the most hope is that a brand new Dadu will appear out of thin air. Among the Qi practitioners, of course, those who are expected to improve their realm by walking the river are the water spirit monsters in Xuanzhe. Just like Ko Xuanxiu, the woman of the East China Sea near Pushun, the reason why he found the buried river Bio Palace was because he borrowed the waterway, with Lioro, the of water. Nowadays, people, gods, ghosts and immortals in the world, where are the rivers and lakes? Only one of the letters in the basket, one of which is from Uncle Dadu Lily, who was born in the old Chantang. Chao Yong asked Qin Pingan if he could help the waterhouse, and asked the Dali court for an extra place to go to the river. He spoke directly, saying that there was an established quota for Uncle Lily, but it had already been given away, but he still needed one. It seems that Yanghua, the Ho of Changchun, has no plans to use that quota, so I don't know if Qin Shanju can do me a favor. Let's talk to Yanghua first, which means that the Marquis of Changchun will transfer the quota to the Lily Mansion. Presumably the Dali court will not block it. As long as the master of Qin Shan is willing to match up, there will be a heavy thank you after the event is completed. Hongxia likes to live in a secluded dojo, but she doesn't doubt that the mountain master is testing people's hearts. So Hongxia just said calmly, Shanju, I never thought of starting a mountain and establishing a sect. I know my weight. This life is only suitable for practicing alone, relying on water to grind kung fu stupidly, and increase my cultivation little by little. It's not good to be the founder of the mountain, let alone a sect. Even if it is a small hill with only a few dozen people, I am destined to be the founder of the mountain, so I stay in Luopao Mountain for a long time. When something like this happens, I can do it for the sect. Do something and then return to the dojo to continue practicing. That is the most suitable choice for me. Qin Pingan hesitated for a moment. Luobao Mountain already has millet grains as the right guardian. You may have guessed it, I plan to let Qin Lingjun serve as the left guardian so that there will be no more mountain guardians to enshrine. So you are in Luopao Mountain even if you are in the Jade Pure realm or even later. The Daos achievements will be higher only in terms of identity. Luopao Mountain really can't give you more. Hongxia smiled and said, I guess only Immortal Master Jing Qing didn't see it. On the Mountain Master's side, Hongxia is not so restrained. But in Jisa Peak Patriarch Hall or in Zushan Jiling Peak, she couldn't help but be nervous, and it's no wonder that Hongxia in Luopao Mountain is not a sword fairy or a martial arts master, a spirit practitioner's nascent soul realm. What? In the words of Pei Xiang, who is now a friend of the boudoir, the two of them are the most embarrassed in the whole Luopao Mountain. The two nascent soul realm are not as relaxing and comfortable as the Dongfu realm of the millet grain. It just happens to be a realm for people to see jokes. Qin Pingan couldn't help laughing, so if you want, I can make a suggestion to Cui Dongshan, and you and Chiu will serve as the guardian of the Qingping Sword Sect together. I took the initiative to give offerings to Qingping Sword Sect, and it was two different things from Cui Dongshan, a student who was digging his feet there. Hongxia's face changed slightly, and he quickly shook his head and said, the Mountain Master has taken it with good intentions, but I would rather be here than I would never dare to go to Sect Master Cui as an errand. Qin Pingan smiled and said, it seems that Sect Master Cui has a bad reputation. Hongxia smiled knowingly, kept silent, did not approve or deny. The Mountain Master will not chew his tongue indiscriminately. The content of these conversations today will not be passed on to Sect Master Cui. Qin Pingan waved to Qin Lingjun. The boy in Xingyi immediately dropped his sleeves and strode. Qin Lingjun finally caught a great opportunity to teach others, moistened his voice and said earnestly, Yunzi, it's better than here. I'm covering you when you go to Qingping Sword Sect. Your realm is not high, change it. This is a new site and you need to deal with outsiders often. If you are unfamiliar in life, remember to keep your temper, be kind to people when you go out, make more friends, don't bully others, don't grin at people when you encounter a little bump. A little bigger, it will ruin the reputation of our Luapa Mountain. If the master doesn't take care of you, I will take care of you too. You must learn more from me. Smile when you meet people, friends everywhere, remember? Yunzi nodded silently. Probably in the entire Luapa mountain, only Yunzi is the most determined to believe that this ancestor of Lingjun is really capable, and even admires him from the bottom of his heart. After Qin Lingjun put his hands together, he nodded and turned his head to look at Hongxia. Hongxia, it's a big girl, just be very careful, the atmosphere outside is not as simple as ours, especially you should pay more attention to those who are looking at people. The dog-like, young and promising cultivator of genealogy, don't listen to a few rhetoric that don't cost money, and then become fascinated by those embroidered pillows. Forget it, the women's college will not stay, I guess you can't listen to it now, it doesn't matter, I turned around and said hello to Chief Mi and asked him to help check. Then again, if there is a suitable and favorite Taoist candidate, you don't have to be too reserved. Women chase men's interlayer yarn and you look good. As long as the other party is not blind, he will take care of him. Yunzi is a rough child, so I'm going to tell him not to cause trouble, to endure it if you can. You're different, don't be afraid of trouble, there is me and Chief Mi to help you. The boy in Xingyi was so old-fashioned that he was like a father, giving face-to-face advice to a pair of children who were about to travel far away, repeatedly admonishing them. Hongxia smiled and said nothing. Waiting patiently until Qin Lingjun finished talking, Qin Pingan smiled and took out 2 celadone water from his sleeves. It's my parting gift, I wish the horse a success, everything goes well, go early and return early. These 2 gifts, the rank is about the same, you can divide it by yourself and you can choose according to your own eyes. Qin Pingan got them from Shuilongzong. Sun Jie of the northern sect gave a pair of bull roars, and Xiao Jingji of the Nanzong presented a midge, also known as Little Majiao. However, the 2 goose yellow and lotus blue ink stones were made by Qin Pingan himself. In this state anyway there are the most porcelains. Qin Pingan is an expert and his vision is not bad. Qin Lingjun stretched his neck and was very greedy, so he winked at Yunzi, implying that the other party has some eyesight, accept it generously first, and then secretly lend me to play for 2 days. I never thought about Yunzi being so stunned, so he nodded and said, fellow Taoist Jingqing, I understand. Qin Lingjun was stunned on the spot, you can understand it, just understand it in your heart. Sure enough, the brain was hit with a chestnut and Qin Lingjun immediately hugged his head. After that, Fengyuan ferry docked, Luopeishan held his long life, and Xuanfu Wei Wenlong and his party all got off the boat. Hongxia Yunzi and the girl xuanhuan, and the mountain master Qin Pingan each bowed and said goodbye. On a bright moonlit night, the sable-capped girl who was swaying all the way to the top of the mountain saw a beautiful girl with a hand inkstone hanging from her waist, sitting alone on the railing, tapping her hands on the railing and looking into the distance. Yo, the little girl's film, she is not young and the realm is not high, and there is a flying sort of life in it which is still a little interesting. Just a little girl who looks nothing special, can she really deal with Pei Qian who is already a martial artist of the end? Xiego pointed his toes, one jumped and stood on the railing, his arms crossed his chest, looked straight ahead and said casually, hey, what are you thinking? Hey, what are you thinking? Xiego was stunned, why learn from me? Why learn from me? Little girl, are you mentally ill, be careful in being rude to you? Little girl, are you mentally ill, be careful in being rude to you? I'm an idiot. As a result, the girl no longer parroted her tongue, but turned her head and gave Xiego a thumbs up. Xiego rubbed his chin, the little girl's family, why is it so uncute? Guizhuzhou said, listen to my master, you are more than 10,000 years old, and you haven't married yourself yet, old girl. Xiego choked for a moment and said dully, you know the fart. You know shit. Guizhuzhou, if you do this again I'll be rude to you. Oh. Xiego sneered and finally stopped learning from me. As a result, the girl began to repeat, listen to my master, you are more than 10,000 years old, and you have not married yourself, old girl. Xiego was a little frustrated and he couldn't beat him. After all, he was Qin Pingan's direct disciple and now he was on the pedigree and he was still half a closed disciple. Scolding? It seems like I can't scold again. To say that it was just a shrew, Xiego learned some skills in the town, but the problem is that this little girl named Guizhuzhou has a very strange brain and ideas. Xiego was afraid that he scolded him for a long time, but the little girl didn't reply a word, and then gave him a thumbs up. Xiego felt that he could hold back his internal injuries. Guizhuzhou sincerely comforted, it's nothing, there are many old girls around me who can't marry. Xiego sat down and didn't really want to chat with Guizhuzhou, but he just came so he just left, he couldn't lose face. Guizhuzhou took out a bamboo flute from his sleeve. Unknown tune, the flute is ethereal and melodious. There is no one around and the moon is bright. When the world is lonely, the sound of the flute is especially clear. It's pretty nice. The cranes in the sky and the dragons roar outside the clouds. The sound is in the courtyard. Xiego waited until Guizhuzhou put away the bamboo flute, first commented and praised and then asked casually, "Are you homesick?" Guizhuzhou answered the question. In the summer palace the master said that the scholars said that school books can prolong the life of ancient books. Umbrella Xiego nodded, collection of books is to correct mistakes. The reasoning in books and outside books is the same. Your master's words are still a bit profound. Guizhuzhou snorted, turned his head and said in surprise, "How could master lie? You are not a fool, I almost thought we had nothing in common." If you only listen to the first half of the sentence, Xiego wants to kill people, but if you add the second half of the sentence, Xiego doesn't know how to answer for a while. Note 1: Julien was written yesterday as a traveler, which is a typo. Sword of Coming Chapter 988. At the end of the first month of the 6th year of Junpei, there was a torrential rain in Chuzhou. At noon it was still as dark as night, but suddenly the thunderstorms stopped. At the beginning of the rain, the mountains were full of verdant green, and the spring was warm. Drops of raindrops fly in the spring breeze. Chen Pingan had lent the boxing manual given by Kongho to Julien to read. Since the two sides agreed to ask a fistfight in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom, then they would have a solid fight. Xiaoyunyan and Mrs. Yanyan, who have been visiting the mountains and rivers in Beipingzu, will visit Luopao Mountain together. Because Feijian had already sent a letter in advance and told Ji Sifeng the date of the itinerary, Chen Pingan brought Wei Wenlong to the gate of the mountain today to drink tea and others. Wei Bo appeared out of thin air at the gate of the mountain, Xiao Xiao Susu hardy and clear, dressed in a snow-white robe, and his posture was as high as a jade mountain. Sitting at the table, Wei Bo poured himself a cup of tea and said that your two guests have already arrived in Huaihuan County. Chen Pingan smiled and said, "Wei Shanjun also needs to inform me about such trivial matters? It's really sincere, but you can help me go to the town to help me meet you." That's the face. Wei Bo didn't answer, just thanked him. He didn't plan to sit for a long time. After drinking a bowl of tea, he returned to Shanjun Mansion without delaying Shanju Chen's hospitality. Because the Chunyang Jinren, who was a guest at Luopao Mountain a few days ago, used his great supernatural powers in one step to shrink the mountains and rivers. He took a step and went straight to the northernmost point of Aquarius Island. Judging from the posture, he was going to cross the sea and travel north to Jiluzu. For some unknown reason, Jinren returned to the realm of Beiyue and came to the top of the vassal called Yuanmu Peak in Luopao Mountain. On the mountain wall of the ancient pines and old vines, Lu Yen was drinking wine with a gourd and a pinch in the other. Jianju wrote a pen and carved a Taoist poem on the cliff. Wei Bo got the reminder from Chen Pingan, and immediately rushed to Yuanmu Peak. Taking advantage of the juncture of Chunyang's poetry, he used euphemism and invited the other party to his home Piyun Mountain. Follow the gourd to draw the scoop, and then go to the cliff to carve the list. Even if there is no complete poem, a list of 1 or 2 words will do. Lu Yen probably saw the face of Qin Shanju and did not reject this matter. As Wei Bo went to Piyun Mountain, there was still snow on the high mountain. Lu Yen did not hesitate to write and write. Bringing wine to the mountains, snow blowing drunken noodles, and seeing thousands of mountains in my life, the first concern is Piyun. Piyun Mountain is a new mountain in the end. If you talk about the cliff carvings, it is really shabby, and the 5 mountains of Aquarius Island may only be slightly better than the Nanyue of Fanjunmao. With such a virtuous list on the top of his own mountain, Wei Bo felt that Jinking's Zhongyue was earthy. Wei Bo drank the tea and said with a smile, "If there are similar good things in the future, remember to count me as Pai Yunshan." Chen Pingan agreed, and Wei Bo hurriedly poured water for Chen Shanju himself, and then came back satisfied with the excitement. Wei Wenlong kept his face sullen, looking at the mountain path from time to time. Chen Pingan found it interesting because Palace Master Wei, the god of wealth, was very nervous. Drinking tea at this moment was like using alcohol to suppress his shock. Walking from the other side of the mountain road and meeting at the mountain gate, Xiao Yunyan and Mrs. Yan Yan habitually called Chen Pingan a hidden official. The god of wealth of Luopao Mountain, the head of Chuanfu, Wei Wenlong looked solemn, bowed his head and clasped his fist with Xiao Yunyan and said, "Disciple Wei Wenlong, I have seen Master." Xiao Yunyan just nodded in acknowledgement. Among the direct disciples of Chunfan Zhai, Xiao Yunyan had never been very optimistic about Wei Wenlong, a disciple who only liked arithmetic. If you want to say that you are not close to Wei Wenlong, you will not. After all, there are only a few direct disciples of Xiao Yunyan, but it is also impossible to say how close the master and the disciple are. Moreover, Wei Wenlong was a stuffy gourd who couldn't beat a fart with a few sticks when he was a child, and Xiao Yunyan was never an amiable master or ancestor in Chunfanzhai back then. Xiao Yunyan turned his head and asked Qin Pingan, Lord Yingguan on the side of Luapa Mountain and Wei Wenlong on the side of the Zhu Shirtang, how many seats are you sitting on? Qin Pingan smiled and said, the only one who ranks ahead of him is me, who is in charge of longevity, and the chief worshipper Zhou Fei. There are only 3, so Wei Wenlong is the 4th leader of our Luopao Mountain. In general sects, there will be a few patriarchs who are older and have a high level of seniority. Most of them are given false titles. Although they have no real power, the position of the patriarch hall is still very high. If you open up with the contemporary patriarchs 1 or 2 realms, maybe the seat position will be second only to the suzerain, and the position of a sect master cultivator should be at the back. Xiao Yunyan said with a smile, I didn't feel anything before, but standing at the foot of Luopao Mountain now seems to feel really good. Wei Wenlong smiled. Aware of Master's glance, Wei Wenlong immediately raised his face and restrained his smile. Qin Pingan complained, Xiao Jinxian, I have to remind you that Palace Master Wei is a big man in our Luapa Mountain. Be polite, don't always put on the air of master and make a stinky face. Xiao Yunyan did not quarrel with Lord Yingguan. Wenlong, you mountain masters have criticized me. What do you think as a master should I smile? Wei Wenlong said nervously, No, master is the same as back then, it's fine. When Palace Master Wei turned his head to speak to Qin Pingan again, he immediately stopped cowardly and said with a calm expression, Shanju Shizhuan has always been like this, with a cold face and a warm heart. There is no need for Shizhuan to do anything deliberately, I will only be uncomfortable. Qin Pingan and Xiao Yunyan looked at each other and smiled. Mrs. Yanyan secretly pouted. Back then, when she was in Upside Down Mountain, she really couldn't see that the Erlingzi Weiss accountant in Chunfanzhai could have today's opportunities and achievements. People are more popular than people. Now this Lady Yanyan is named Mei Tao, and the Taoist name is Plum Blossom Master. At the Qingmei Temple in Nantang Lake, she spent 120 years of Taoism and finally falsely reported 150 years. Xiao Yunyan was invited by the suzerain Nayland Saihuan when he visited the Yulong sect, which had changed its dynasty. Mrs. Yanyan had a good relationship with the Shui Jinggong Yunsan in the past, so now both of them are named guests of the Yulong sect. Lord Yingguan seems to have finally noticed the second guest. Qin Pingan glanced at Mrs. Yanyan and smiled, It's always good to walk around the world and be kind to others. Mrs. Yanyan smiled embarrassedly, and was full of slander in her heart. Lord Yingguan, your stinky fault of being a good teacher really needs to be corrected. Qin Pingan narrowed his eyes with a smile as if to see through her thoughts. Then change it? Mrs. Yanyan deliberately looked blank and Qin Pingan didn't care. She smiled and said, Nayland Saihuan is still the same. It's good to talk about money and hurt feelings. I won't even give you this salary. The host and the guest went up the mountain together, and happened to meet at Xin Yuanji, who was walking down the mountain and practicing boxing. She and Qin Shanju looked at each other. Qin Pingan smiled and shook his head gently, indicating that she did not need to stop and speak. Mrs. Yanyan asked in a heartfelt voice, Is she? Qin Pingan was too lazy to answer such a question. Although Feijian had already sent a letter to Xiao Yunyan, Qin Pingan was still talking with Mrs. Yanyan about the invitation of the Kangwu of Jiui Mountain. After chatting a few words about the customs of Jiui Mountain, after all, some things, especially those involving insider information, will not be publicized in the Shanshuidi newspaper. Exceptions are occasional. This made Mrs. Yanyan quite complacent. It was not too uncommon, but it was absolutely uncommon to have a prince of the 5 sacred mountains in Middle-earth personally invite him as a guest. Qin Pingan asked, Are you going to return directly to the Dragon Elephant Sword sect? Xiao Yunyan shook his head and said, Continue to travel north and return to your hometown. Qin Pingan nodded and said, It's time to go back and have a look. Xiao Yunyan, a sword immortal who has been away from home for many years, is actually a native of Beiju Luzhou. Back then, when Lu Jinglong brought his disciple Bai Shou to Chunfanzhai, of course there was a female cultivator by his side, Lu Sui, the direct disciple of the sect master of Xuanhuan, who could be said to be in love with Lu Jinglong. When he came to the door, Lu Jinglong helped his apprentice to order a sword-raising gourd in Chunfanzhai. Xiao Yunyan actually gave a very fair price, but it made Bai Shou's forehead sweat. And the well-deserved mountain gourd vine produced 14 gourds, but according to Xiao Yunyan's calculations, there were actually only 7 gourds that could be successfully refined into top-grade sword-raising gourds. Xianhuan waited for nearly 1,000 years from the time he got a gourd vine to the time when the melon was about to ripen and fall, and the construction of a chunbajai was just to be able to cultivate this thing. The reason why Lu Jinglong was able to reserve one of them was because some of the 7 people could not buy it according to the appointment, so chunbajai only vacated an extra place, and it just happened to be picked up by Lu Jinglong, who would be better off early than by chance. The first floor of the bamboo building is small and not suitable for entertaining guests, so Chen Pingan led 2 guests to a temporarily idle house in Jiling Peak. After taking their seats, Chen Pingan took out a piece of paper from his sleeve and handed it to Xianhuan, on which he listed a series of lists and items. Xianhuan browsed it carefully and Chen Pingan said, "The price is not a problem as long as the other party is willing to speak, you can just help me agree." Xianhuan immediately saw the doorway and asked in confusion, "What do you need these literary movements for?" On the top of the list, in addition to the Wenyun Calamus of Jui Mountain, there are also many big hilltops and monks in Middle-earth Shenzhou, Beiju Luzhou and Nambasuzu, but most of the sects above are familiar to Xianhuan. Regarding the 6 cultivators who bought the sword-raising gourd, Xianhuan didn't hide anything from Chen Pingan back then, and there was nothing to hide anyway. Chunfan Zhai, also one of the 4 private residences in the Upside-Down Mountain, is actually more incense on the mountain than Liu's ape house in Aizhou. The plum garden of Mrs. Yen Yen, who was languidly leaning against the back of her chair, heard the word, Wenyun, and she immediately became interested and full of energy. Could it be that our hidden official wanted to use the status of Wensheng's closed disciple as a springboard, and planned to become a Confucian temple in the future? The academy sacrificed wine, or even that? The vice hierarch. Chen Pingan explained, "Our little housekeeper in Luopao Mountain is called Qin Rushu, and her Taoist name is Nuanshu. Xuanhuan was born in Wenyun Fire Python. She is currently in the Dragon Gate realm. Because of her feet, her walk in the water is more special." Xianhuan said, "Even with the help of these foreign objects, she still needs to get out of the water." Chen Pingan smiled and said, "Don't worry about it, Shanren has his own plan." Lu Xianying once gave Chen Pingan a book-turning style. In fact, Chen Pingan forwarded it to Qin Nuanshu at the beginning, and it turned out that when he arrived at Chao Qing's side, Chao Qingqing took the initiative to mention this at that time, and his face was helpless. Just let him stop thinking about it and just stay. After all, once Xuanhuan insists, let alone Chao Qingqing, neither the old cook nor Chen Pingan. Xianhuan thought for a while, "I have some incense love with these sects and monks, but the items on your list are not a matter of price, and there is no shortage of sects on the list. It's money, so my face may not be effective. Can you take out your name?" Chen Pingan nodded and said, "No problem, Xiao De Jiangxian is only responsible for paying the bill. If the other party doesn't want to receive money, he wants to barter, or make some requests that have nothing to do with money. For example, the other party wants to let it's okay for me to attend the ceremony and ask for a seal, you all agree to it for me." Xianhuan looked at Chen Pingan and was a little curious as to where this warm tree was sacred. Mrs. Yen Yen also stared blankly at the young hidden official. She felt sour in her heart. Why should I be deflated and wronged everywhere on the side of Lord Yingguan? That one is the Dragon Gate Realm's Wenyun Fire Python, that's it? A priceless treasure? Chen Pingan coughed suddenly, reminding the 2 not to discuss this matter for the time being. Soon a girl in a pink skirt brought a plate of melon and fruit cakes. She knocked on the door softly and saw the master smiling and nodding. She crossed the threshold again, put the plate on the table and joined the 2 distinguished guests. After a blessing, the voice was clear and self-registered, and then Nuanshu was about to leave. Mrs. Yen Yen glanced at the girl in pink skirt who had been described by the young hidden official as the housekeeper of Luapa Mountain, but she turned out to be a little girl carved in pink and jade, and she looked cute. Chen Pingan picked up a citrus from the plate and handed it over with a smile. Qin Nuanshu smiled shyly, shook his head gently and said softly, "If you have an order, I will let you know, and Nuanshu will be waiting in the yard outside." Chen Pingan did not hold back but nodded with a smile. After the girl in the pink skirt left the house, Xianhuan said with a smile, "After 1,000 years, I'm going back to my hometown this time, mainly to visit Xuanxingshan." Chen Pingan nodded and said, "It's time to go over there to catch up." At that time Xianhuan asked Lu Jinglong to Lu Sui, and the immortal weapon ranks gourd vine was sent to Shuijing Mountain in Beiju Luzhou. Originally, once such a thing leaked out, it would easily be a disaster. If Lu Jinglong was not a swordsman in the Jade Purity realm at that time, and his master was not the Taihui sword sect with a strong heritage in Beiju Luzhou, Xianhuan would have dared not open his mouth. Not to mention, the sword cultivation avenue that will also be implicated in the death of an immortal embryo. After all, the wealth and silk are moving, not to mention this invaluable gourd vine. It is necessary to know that in the next millennium, a new series of sword raising may be born. Gourd. Xianxia asked tentatively, about sect master Lu and Lu Sui? Can xuanhuan help you to match them? Qin Pinggan's head was heavy for a while and he said helplessly, Xiao Jinxian Xiao De Jiangxian. How can I say this as an outsider? Besides, Sun Qing, the head of Kaik Mansion, is not also one of Lu Dajia's admirers? Xiao Yunyan sighed, Lu Sui and Taihui Jinzong Lu Jinglong, Lu Sui master and himself, the true resemblance, are all bitter love. This gourd vine was obtained by Xiao Yunyan and Lu Sui masters together in a secret realm in a broken cave. She deserves more credit for getting it, but she did not hesitate to give the treasure to Xiao Yunyan. A pair of Taoist couples were just wrong, due to various reasons and twists and turns, and ultimately failed to have a lover to become a family. Xiao Yunyan was also worried that in Beiju Luzhou, he would not be able to keep the precious gourd vine on this mountain, so he rushed to Dianchuan Mountain alone. So when he met Lu Sui later, Xiao Yunyan regarded her as his own daughter. Qin Pinggan asked curiously, what happened to the result? Mrs. Yan Yan reached out and took a tangerine, and threw the orange peel on the ground several times, giving the young hidden officer a side glance. She immediately bent down silently to pick up the orange peel, sat upright and put the orange peel on her lap. Xiao Yunyan nodded and smiled and said, the result is better than expected. It can definitely be refined into a sword-raising gourd. There are 8, I dare not say that it will be successful, but there is a certain hope. There is still a gourd, and this one, once it is refined, the sword-raising gourd has the best rank, but no one dares to gamble. After all, my offer is very high, even higher than the other 7 sword-raising gourds. To be honest, I did it on purpose and didn't want to sell it. Go out. Is this going to send me? Qin Pinggan's eyes lit up and he said solemnly, as a gift for the establishment of the next sect in Luopao Mountain, it is too precious and not particularly suitable, but if Xiao Jinxian insists, I will have to be respectful rather than obedient. Mrs. Yan Yan smiled. Xiao Yunyan said, as long as Lord Yingguan is willing to match, I will send the unexpected sword-raising gourd, and then give this gourd white to Luopao Mountain. Mrs. Yan Yan's heart trembled slightly when she heard this. Xiao Yunyan, you are really willing to spend your money. Qin Pinggan smiled and waved his hand. No, if I dare to say this, Lu Jiuxian will have to break up with me. Xiao Yunyan suddenly stopped talking. Qin Pinggan asked with a smile, could it be that Bai Chang was well informed and asked you for the 8th sword-raising gourd before retreating? Xiao Yunyan nodded. Qin Pinggan said, then don't hesitate, sell it. Why not sell it and ask for a price to death? Xiao Yunyan breathed a sigh of relief. Qin Pinggan smiled and said, the bridge returns to the bridge and the road returns. A business is a business. This kind of thing is not at all hypocritical. Xiao Yunyan was relieved. Qin Pinggan suddenly asked, the gourd that you might have bought and planted in your hand, not to mention the sky-high price you offered, if an acquaintance wanted to buy it from you, what price would it be? Xiao Yunyan stretched out a finger. Qin Pinggan was speechless. An acquaintance bought it and needed 1,000 grain rain money? Xiao Jinxian, you are not doing business, you are stealing money. Mrs. Yan Yan said, on the way here, I negotiated with Xiao Yunyan. If Lord Yingguan doesn't buy it, I will buy it and give it to Mr. Lu as a congratulatory gift to wish her to enter the Ascension realm. Qin Pinggan nodded and said, I have a heart. After hesitating for a moment, Qin Pinggan said tentatively, Xiao Jinxian, all of them are from his own family. 1,000 grain rain money, is it a bit too much? 500 pieces, I think it is more fair. After all, it is a gamble and losing the bet is a blow. Drift, there are 500 guyu money. I lost this worthless gourd, I can't bear it. Don't lose it. I'm worried at a glance. 500-inch Xiao Yunyan was too lazy to haggle and asked with a smile, Master Yingguan, you really don't buy it? Qin Pinggan was really tangled, scratching his head and said, if it wasn't for the digging of Dadu, I would just grit my teeth and buy it. Right now I'm really poor. There are actually many people who can send it, but Qin Pinggan really has no confidence in his lucky. If he fails to become a sword-raising gourd, and if Lu Xianying listens to him by accident, Qin Pinggan can fully imagine that he will be strangled by Lu Xianying's neck, held on his head and chased and scolded. If he is so rich, why don't he give it directly to him? My money. Being able to insist on not turning around and running away, the farther away from Cui Dongshan the better, Yu Lu felt that thank you for these years is a well-deserved achievement in self-cultivation. In order to make Xie Xie's mood a little more relaxed, Yulu deliberately found a topic and said with a smile. Every fool knows that this Rin River, which is connected to the West Sea from one continent, plus several main tributaries, is a very suitable place for thousands of miles. Building a cornucopia of xianxia ferry, but the problem is that when a fool knows that a certain business can make money, no accident, it is a pit. The unrepentant thank you smile is far-fetched. Where is she in the mood to care about a river? As Yulu said, this is indeed the case. Previously, in the mountains and rivers in the middle of Tongya continent near the source, middle and end of the Lianhe River, all parties clung to each other. During the initial stage of the ferry, many forces retreated in spite of difficulties. They felt that their arms could not twist their thighs, and they were unwilling to spend money to waste water. I felt that I still lost a large sum of money. It was because the ferry was halfway through, and the foundation was finally laid. It has become tasteless. One threatened to spend a lot of money to build a landscape formation to completely intercept the water transportation in the upper reaches of the Lianhe River, and the immortal clan power located at the mouth of the Lianhe River is not a thing. The shrines and the spirits of waterborne spirits who have lost their incense should be worshipped. Every day they make waves in the middle section of the Lianhe River, trying their best to draw water transportation. Most of these people are from the gods of lewd temples in small countries in the past, and they are also posing to build temples nearby. The temple Wenhebo and the god of water, who were sealed by the court. The most excessive is that it was only after the xianxia forces who had withdrawn from the ferry that they found out that the xianxia ferry located at the mouth of the Rin River was just a sham, and never really broke the ground at all. When the construction started, it was clear that from the beginning he wanted to come to the middle of the Lianhe to occupy the magpie's nest. After that, there was a boy in white clothes who couldn't carry it, and he was born out of nowhere. Of course, the process was not going to be smooth sailing. The unidentified and skilled man named Yamazawa Yeshio knew the rules. Near the ferry, he set up an arena to welcome heroes from all over the world and a wine stand. Approaching the hut, thank you for looking at the white-clothed boy, who was squatting by the river, and suddenly her breathing became short of breath, as if every step she took a lot of energy. Traveling to Aquarius Island together over the years, Yulu often teased her half-jokingly, "Be careful that your inner demon in the future is Chui Dongshan." Thank you is really afraid. She is afraid of Chui Dongshan, but even more afraid of the inner demon Chui Dongshan. Therefore Yulu's half-joking "two evils are the lesser of the two evils" finally made Xianxia make up his mind. Since he is destined to hide, he will face Chui Dongshan directly. This time I came to Lianhe bravely, thank you, because I hope it can alleviate the fear of Chui Dongshan. Otherwise, once she becomes a cultivator of nascent soul, she will try to break the bottleneck of nascent soul realm and enter the Jade Pure realm, in case the demon is really Chui Dongshan. Thank you, the thought of this makes me despair. Back then, when we went to the Great Sui Academy to study together, Chui Dongshan seemed to be targeting her only. But I don't know why, this time I reunited after a long absence in a foreign land. Looking at Chui Dongshan, who was squatting in a daze, thank you, and felt a little strange. The Chui Dongshan in my impression is not so tired? Chui Dongshan threw the cobblestone in his hand into the river, knocked out an aquarium spirit who sneaked here to spy on the information, and showed his true body on the spot, saying that the sky was white with fish belly, but at this moment he saw the center of the river. A herring weighing at least 300 caddies floated up, and the belly of the white flower was so big. This is the New Year's Eve in the first month of the year. I took the initiative to bring fish and meat, and I have dinner. There is no problem in setting up a seat at the head of the village. Chui Dongshan stood up and complained, "Yulu, why didn't you come here earlier?" And I was slapped with 3 sharp punches by a great master of martial arts with a golden body in vain. It's so heavy that outsiders can't imagine it. I vomited several kilograms of blood on the spot, and I almost burped. If this happens, won't it hurt our thank you girl and spend an extra sum of money? Thank you, I don't understand at all, and I don't want to understand. But Chui Dongshan didn't want to let her go. Thank you, tell me, why do you spend money? Just when thanked his face pale, Yulu smiled. Sect Master Chui thinks that if you hear the bad news, you will probably buy a lot of firecrackers to celebrate. Chui Dongshan stretched out his thumb towards Yulu, then shifted his gaze to look at the helpless thank you. Chui Dongshan sighed softly, sorry for accepting such a stupid apprentice. Thank you for being so nervous that her palms are sweaty, and she already wants to return to Aquarius. People who haven't been to this stupid place have no right to say that she is cowardly. Before coming to this ferry, Yulu had inquired about some news with her. Anyway, it had already been spread. First, a martial arts master of the 7th realm would come to save people's disasters with money and money. One punch made the boy roll all over the ground, another punch made the boy spin around a dozen times in the air, and with the last punch the boy hit the ground in the face. In the end he made the warrior full of guilt, and quickly helped the young man back to the stall. Another old immortal who is a golden elixir of earth, with 3 attack techniques, spared no effort to beat the boy in white. His clothes were shattered, and he lay in the pit, foaming at the mouth, convulsing all over. Half dead, struggling to get up, he staggered toward the stall like a drunken man. I heard that this young man Yishio was very arrogant. He shook his bowl and drank half a bowl of wine before spitting back half a bowl of blood. In the end, a Jindanjian sword cultivator came, also from Yamazawa Yeshio, but for some reason after a few words with the boy in white, this sword cultivator named Tao Ran turned his back on the battle, and instead defended the boy in white. It's not hard to guess, he must have given Tao Ran a higher price, the dog-eared Yishio who only accepts money as his ancestor. This is very Cui Dongshan. Yulu is not surprised at all. Cui Dongshan shook his sleeves, started to circle around thank you and said with a grin, "Since you are here, you should assume that you are my direct disciple, and you will be exempted from worshipping the teacher's tea. If you don't drink it, I am timid, I am afraid that you will poison you. Or spit in it. Thank you for being tense and expressionless." Cui Dongshan was still circling over there. "Let me add another direct disciple from the genealogy ultimatum, thank you. Thank you for the fine sweat oozing from your forehead. Yulu didn't help this time, thank you for the rescue. He had to pass the test, walk on a single plank bridge and no one else could drag or help him." Cui Dongshan suddenly asked, "Yulu, did you bring the sword talisman cast by Longquan Jianzong in the early years? If you have, bring it and take it as a gift to thank you for the apprenticeship ceremony." Thank you. Yulu smiled and took out a few pocket swords from his sleeves and said, "Don't worry, it's all from the early years." Cui Dongshan took it and there were as many as 5. It was a little unexpected. He thought he would only have 3 swords if he died and asked with a smile, "Why so many?" Yulu explained, "When I had some spare money I reported to Longquan sword sect that I lost 2 and bought 2 more. Su Xiaoqiao of the blacksmith shop by the Longshu River may be for the sake of my relationship with Chen Pingan. I didn't care about it, I just reminded me that there were only 3 things, and Su Xiaoqiao also agreed to one of my requests. As for the other 2 swords, I bought them from the immortal master and the price was doubled." It is estimated that the other party still feels that they have done it. A good deal. Back then, in the Longzhou boundary of the former site of Lizidongshan, the chi practitioners whose dojos were located in the mountains in the west wanted to fly into the sky and ride the wind, or pass through the Longzhou boundary. They all needed to buy a small flying sword from Longquan Jianzhou. Sword charm. Now the old Longzhou has become the new state, and the Longquan Jianzhou has also relocated to the northern part of Dalajingji. In fact, the Longquan Jianzhou has no longer cast the sword charm similar to the customs clearance, but Ruanqiong made this token. The rules of Yufeng have been followed by everyone over the years, and no one dared to take the lead in making an exception. After all, Ruanqiong is still the chief worshipper of the Dali dynasty. Cui Dongshan praised, Yulu, you are still smart." Cui Dongshan waved his hand and dragged the big fish that was drifting downstream towards him, and then shouted, jumping high and kicking the big fish. After finishing work and clapping his hands, Cui Dongshan nodded to himself, "I'm invincible with my feet, I just want to get it." The big fish that was kicked by Cui Dongshan and rolled to the ground rolled on the ground and suddenly transformed into a human form, covered in dust, sitting on the ground blankly, looking like a man with 5 big and 3 thick. Cui Dongshan stretched out his finger and scolded, "You are a bunch of bird thieves who are with the army, so serious, hiding in the water and looking at the bird east. Do you see my apprentice's fair skin and beautiful skin, round buttocks and good health, just greedy for her body and want to kidnap her to be Mrs. Yajai?" Before waiting for the dizzy and strong man to make a belly draft, Cui Dongshan swept his sleeves and beat the man back to his original shape, and fell heavily into the Rin River, splashing a lot of waves. "The 2 armies do not fight, this is the case. They'll spare your life and pass a message to your master. Mingren don't do secret affairs. If you have the ability you can make an appointment with me. If he wins, the ferry will belong to him." "I won. How could I?" "I have won against a famous far-flung master." The herring was in the water and did not dare to recover its body. With a vigorous shaking of its head and tail, it fled to the lower reaches of the Lianhe River. Cui Dongshan twitched the corners of his mouth. When the new ferry is completed, a large number of people will be needed to operate the ferry, and it will be difficult to maintain the normal operation of a xianxia ferry without a number of 30 or 50 people. At that time all these water spirit monsters from the shrine will be wiped out, and none of them will run away. Do you need a salary? You are all killed, what money do you give? At Cui Dongshan's suggestion, the three of them walked up the river together, and Yulu asked, "Does the ferry have a name?" Cui Dongshan said angrily, "It's not that easy to choose a good name that is both elegant and popular. I'm not a gentleman, so I can pick it up at my fingertips. Aquarius Island Nyojiao Ferry, Shindu Mountain Qingshan Ferry, Lingbai Mountain Yayan Ferry, this is the fourth private Xinjia ferry. Along the banks of the Rin River, there are now many small countries, mixed with fish and dragons. There are only a few old Jindan immortals who are regarded as magic and profound, who are national teachers or real people who protect the country. They are busy with a lot of titles, and they can seal the 5 mountains of Chan for the new monarch, the righteous gods of rivers and waters, or the founders of mountains and schools. Very imposing, often concurrently serving as the chief worshipper and guest minister of several small countries at the same time. It's just that the Confucian academies will not take care of such things. Generally speaking, as long as there are no chi practitioners who transcend the established rules of the Confucian temple, then the dynasties at the foot of the mountain will change, and the gentlemen and sages of the academy will not intervene in the political affairs of various countries. Yulu, do you know the origin of Tong Ye's name? Looking through some local chronicles and unofficial history, it seems that in ancient times, there was a heroic and powerful king in the Middle-earth divine continent who cut a piece of tung leaf in the palace garden into a chisel shape and gave it to his own younger brother. The latter came to Tong Yi continent. Established a dynasty on the banks of the old Dadu. This old town, which has disappeared for many years, is called Fendu. When the water transportation was at its peak, the main tributaries were 12 rivers, including the Hueha and Shujiang and the Linggu changed. Today, Dequan, the buried river in the dynasty, is only a small section of the river from Fendu to the sea. As for the Rin River at the foot, it is just a small tributary of Fendu in the past, no more than 2,000 miles long. In fact, if we trace the origin of the Jade Guizhong, the two northern and southern sects, the most powerful and longest-standing sects in Tonggishao, actually came from the same ancestor, so the surnames of the founders of the two sects are the same. Thank you, and also sincerely admire that Yulu is a pure warrior. She has roughly counted how many miscellaneous books she has read during her travels over the years. Cui Dongshan clicked his tongue in admiration and said, "If I ask you a question, I can give you 2 answers. Is this buy one get one free?" Yulu smiled and said, "Just when I added the thank you answer along the way." Cui Dongshan sighed, "Even if you Yulu just gave me a lost brain of this heirloom." Cui Dongshan put his hands on his hips. "Stupid apprentice, I plan to expel you from my division. I'm not joking with you, be serious. Don't say thank you, you are dumbfounded and overwhelmed, even Yulu is dumbfounded." The boy in white shook his shoulders from left to right, then raised a snow-white sleeve, shook it and said triumphantly, "Sir isn't here, you Su go Su." Yulu sighed, lowered his head, reached into his sleeve and rolled out an envelope with his fingertips. Cui Dongshan, with a speed that could not cover his ears, said to xianxia decisively, "Good apprentice, I'm joking with you for my teacher, don't take it seriously." Yulu was still moving. Cui Dongshan walked like a fly, reached out to grab Yulu's arm with one hand, and pushed the envelope back to his sleeve with the other. "Yulu, we are all good brothers who share weal and woe, don't do anything if you disagree. What are you doing? Your brothers don't make a trump card at every turn, they will only hurt their relatives and their enemies." "Thank you," more and more like a cloud. "What is Yulu doing and what is Cui Dongshan doing?" Yulu said with his heart, "And thanks. Before I came, I roughly guessed your situation, so I secretly asked you for an amulet." "Thank you." Suddenly. If it wasn't for facing Cui Dongshan, xianxia was actually an extremely smart and aura woman. Cui Dongshan raised his face and asked, "Thank you, you see my husband in the future, do you know what to call him? Just like the little mute riding the dragon lane, I have to call my master." "Thank you for the rare face." Yulu shook his head quietly. Cui Dongshan grinned, and it was rare that he did not continue to be disgusting. "Thank you." Holding the back of his head with both hands, Cui Dongshan sighed, "You can be serious and old-fashioned, but you can't speak harshly. Like me, good-natured and kind-hearted, there are really not many. The two of you were once the favored sons of the heavens. One was His Royal Highness the Prince of the Lu dynasty, who was the suzerain of the Song dynasty in the early years, and the other was a genius cultivator who claimed to be the most promising of the Lu dynasty to enter the Jade Realm. They have all become prisoners. Remember that you used to work for me as a handyman back then, at the Yuan family's ancestral house in Erlang Lane? You have suffered a lot. When a person has no money, the good people, bad people, good and bad things he encounters are all true. So my husband, I still remember the woman's bowl of rice, the steamed buns handed out by a slug, the wooden man in the kitchen next door, the old woman's eggs wrapped in red paper, and so on, but I think a person's memory is too good, not too good. There is an old saying that people don't put money in their pockets if they don't have a heart. It seems that if you want to become a master, you have to be ruthless. You can only be ruthless. Then a tough heart is a sharp knife that only hurts others. In fact, a soft-hearted is also a dull knife, but it will only wear itself out. Every time I grit my teeth and tell myself not to be any more kind of person, the so-called maturity is a wake-up call for yesterday's self. Yu Lu is a little strange and Cui Dongshan is a little strange now because it is too normal. Back then, Cui Dongshan never had a heart-to-heart talk with them on the way to study, and he never talked to people. Past things. Then Cui Dongshan smiled and asked a series of questions. Yu Lu, before you came to Tongyi's Hao, you have never been to Jianghu, where the capital of the old Lu dynasty was located. So thank you for persuading you to restore your original state. Name and then establish a country on Tongyi's Hao? Another example may have to wait 20 or 30 years for her to become the national teacher. Another example is to advise you to go to Pushen Yunkatang and so on, so that you can learn to prolong your life as a warrior. Inyan's fairy magic? Yu Lu said frankly, almost all of them were guessed by Sect Master Cui. The only difference is that I think you don't have to wait for 20 to 30 years, you just need to find a site in Tongyi's Hao, and plan for a decade or two to establish a country. Cui Dongshan's eyes widened. Thank you, are you so confident that you can enter the nascent soul realm? Xia nodded and said, at the most 20 years I will definitely be able to enter the nascent soul realm. This is still a good plan for the first retreat to fail. Cui Dongshan said in surprise, then didn't I find another ready-made treasure? A nascent soul realm, which is invincible enough to be beaten all over the banks of the Lianhe River, isn't it worth more than the foundation of an empty ferry? Thank you silently. Cui Dongshan turned his head and said, Yu Lu, don't be pretentious and don't pretend to be sloppy. Those who chase the deer don't care about rabbits and show some courage that a big man should have. You don't have to wait for a decade or two. Lu, I've helped you find the site. It's on the north bank of the Lianhe River, back to the south bank side, not far away. There is a surprise waiting for you. As for the surprise, don't worry, let me sell it. I am most afraid of meeting each other without money. According to our seniority, we are still brothers and sisters from the same sect. When you become the king of a country, my apprentice will become a national teacher for you. With these 2 layers of relationship, I can still lack it. Drink? Yu Lu stopped talking. He had said something to xianxia before, not only asking her but also asking himself. Can the continuation of Guozhua in other continents be regarded as the restoration of the country? Cui Dongshan said for no reason, keep yourself low and set your sights high. Yu Lu asked, didn't you see very far? People who are in a hopeless predicament can never see the long term. Cui Dongshan shook his head, but no one can stop us from looking up at the sky. Thank you, of course, didn't dare to interrupt. If she heard Qin Pingan say such a thing, she would definitely make a joke. Isn't this a frog in a well? Cui Dongshan smiled and said, yes, we are all frogs in the well. Cui Dongshan murmured in a low voice, young Shui. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.